Good afternoon. I think we should be starting in a couple of minutes. Just give the rest of the team to join in. So maybe one more minute, then we'll start. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the first scientific session for our presentations. We have three speakers who will be presenting their papers today. So let me just give you some ground rules so you're aware exactly what we do and what not to do. Just make sure that you are muted. And then every speaker will have exactly 15 minutes to present their paper. And there will be 5 minutes after each presentation for question and answers. For the delegates, they can put their questions into the chat, and then we'll be able to send them to the speakers to give us their feedback on those questions. Let's try to really stick to the time because we have exactly 1 hour to really finish the whole session. So let me start with the session, which is titled Corporate Governance Practices, External Shocks, CSR, and Business Resilience. So we have the first paper presented by Dr. Henry Chris-Matty. He's an assistant professor at the Faculty of Business and Economics at MCBS. He specialized in health and safety, and he also involved in research heavily, and also he helped within the quality assurance. He's certified from IASHA, NIBASH, and OASHA. So let me welcome Dr. Henry to the floor, and now he can start presenting his paper. Dr. Henry, you have exactly 15 minutes for presenting your paper. Take it away. Dr. Henry, you may need to unmute yourself because we cannot hear you.
Yeah. I'll be going through the presentation, briefly giving you about view about what is CSR and the concepts of CSR with the sustainable development. And we're also talking about a little bit about the objectives, why and what background we have working on this particular topic, and what is the methodology and our final findings and the conclusion. So as everyone knows about the corporate social responsibility, and it's widely being known by everyone, especially in the research field. Basically, CSR is a social responsibility, and it's an voluntary action most of the organizations have taken up. And the main aim is to meet the society, because the organizations are accountable for their operations and the impact they are going to create on the society. So as part of goodwill, most of the organizations reach up to the society and take up certain kind of activities. So there are different organizations who have standardly defined the CSR. It's a company commitment and in terms of ethical standards, and to provide some sort of support to the employees as well as the society to bring in some economic development. So this is what the World Business Council for Sustainable Development defines. And even the WHO and also the United Nations have given their different understanding with relation to the CSR. So if you look at the CSR concept, where exactly CSR will stand with relation to SD. So there's not much of a distinction. We can say a CSR is basically built upon the platform of sustainable development. And CSR is more a diversified approach, if we can say, because it balances the three essential pillars of sustainable development. And taking this particular concept forward, many organizations, right from the large firms up to the small and medium enterprises, have taken this initiative now to implement CSR as a part of their sustainable development activities. So we kept this thought in our mind, and we moved forward to study our research work, and we have fixed some of our objectives is to find what is the significance of the CSR activities in organizations, especially in Oman during the COVID-19 pandemic. And our second objective, what we have tried to study, is to know whether this pandemic has really promoted or it has caused some kind of stumbling block to organizations in implementing. And the third objective is to know what are the organizations in Oman thinking about CSR, especially during this time. So looking at the methodology that we have used is basically a survey, collecting the data from different companies using a questionnaire, and we have used an online platform using Google Forms and circulated the survey with relation to the objectives. And we got responses from 7 different sectors in Oman, comprising of 24 companies. And we have analyzed the responses from these 7 industrial sectors, and we came up with some of the conclusions. And if you can look at from the responses and the study that we have done, what we could understand is there is a clear link that organizations have understood that the CSR can bring in about an organizational improvement in performance. So if you look at CSR has been working, and it's considered as a self-regulating business model for most of the organizations. And every business feels like, and they felt that CSR is inculcated into the business, and it brings in about an automatic business progress. And second, if you look at the literature, there are so many studies published, and so many researchers have studied the CSR in different sectors, and they could clearly define that there is an improvement. They have found out an improvement in financial and corporate reputation because of the CSR. And looking at the consumers, most of the consumers in a study survey that was done, 77% are preferring to trade or do business with companies that value social, economic, and environmental aspects to the CSR. And apart from that, CSR definitely is going to bring a very good image, or it's going to create a very good footprint to the society in marketing their products. And apart from that, this is the main background literature that takes forward and gives a very good message to the industries and organizations. And now we can see that most of the organizations around the world have launched into this particular aspect. So it is a part of manufacturing industries, banking and finance, service, hospitals, even hotels, educational sector, even IT and telecommunications. So it's not very limited, it's extensive. And we can see that most of the organizations are embarking on this particular approach. Now, if you look at the relations where CSR will try to lead organizations to improve their performance by taking the path of sustainable business, CSR is indirectly going to cause an improvement in customer satisfaction. It's going to create more sense of consumer preference. At the end, it's going to create a more product satisfaction and a better recognition and an acceptance in the society. So this indirectly are meeting the goals of sustainable development. So in that, we can say that the CSR activities are really going to make a path for sustainable development. Now, if you look at the response that we got from our survey, we have got response from 7 different sectors, right from aviation, educational, oil and gas, pharmaceutical, construction, service, and transport and logistics. From each of these sectors, we have received different types of companies who have responded to our survey. We have got around 24 different companies from these sectors, And from each of these companies, we have got a different number of responses where people have responded to a survey. Now, if you look at the analysis, we have received a response from 24 companies, 7 sectors. And in total, the survey was conducted for 47 respondents, and from the 47 respondents, we have come to a certain kind of conclusions. And we definitely believe that these conclusions are not the only one. There is a long way to go, as we have got certain limitations at the end. The graph shows the sectors, the number of companies, and the number of participants from each company and the sector. Quickly summarizing the results that we got from the survey, we categorized our survey summary into 4 different aspects. One is the organizations, their activities and the participation level, and what is their sustainable development policy, and what is the promotion and the benefits the organizations are really experiencing when they are implementing the CSR, and how good or bad the CSR was during the pandemic time. So we categorized and we got the responses from the survey, and they are displayed over here. So we're not going to look into more details because of the time. Looking at the activities that most of the organizations have responded is they have focused on different areas where they are going to go forward in implementing the activities. And they're focused on some of the activities which are displayed in the graph. And most of the organizations, to the extent of 35%, they have said that they will focus on innovation and management. That's the most focused area in their CSR plan. And followed by the customer service and privacy, air quality, climate strategy, and all these things. And if we look at what is the range or what is the duration these organizations have taken in implementing these activities, especially during this time, most of the organizations, to the extent of 50%, they have taken the activities in the first few years. And they have ranged those activities up to a maximum of 5 years. And the number of activities that we look into is most of the organizations that we have surveyed, they have implemented around 1 to 3 activities to the extent of 50%, and 4 to 6 activities per year. So this is a very wide area, which shows that most of the organizations have taken up at least 1 to a maximum of 6 different activities per year. Looking at the awareness aspects, what kind of activities, what kind of mechanisms, what steps the organizations are taking to create motivation among the employees and highlighting the importance of CSR activities among employees, we could find out some of the major areas where most of the organizations have felt is on the 7 different areas. And we try to map them with the 7 different sectors. We could come up with most of the sectors have felt an importance of creating awareness in health and safety field or health and safety field, sustainable practices and sustainable development goals to a maximum extent. While these are basically implemented or focused by mostly oil and gas and construction sectors, because that is the major area in Oman, because basically it depends on oil and gas and construction. While the other areas which are lesser significant that the other sectors are focused is on work ethics, social concerns, and environmental management. And environmental management was a core area which education institutions were focusing on, basically to create awareness about the environmental and protection. If you look at what this study reveals in implementation of the activities, what is the reasons and why these organizations are implementing these particular activities is mainly for influencing a good business growth, bringing in more demand and opportunities for future. And what are the indicators that the organizations are using to promote this we have tried to identify the indicators, and we have marked them based on the priority as some of the primary indicators which will influence in bringing business growth and demand and opportunity for future. We have mapped them based on the secondary significance and the tertiary and the least. So if you look at that particular graph, we come to know that there are certain indicators organizations are using as a primary reason, as an indicator to implement these activities, because they believe that this could bring a good business and demand for future, and also opportunities for the organizations to grow in future. And coming to these CSR dimensions, as we know, the CSR concept basically depends on the 3 pillars of sustainable development. And when we got to know which particular dimension organizations would prefer to take up the CSR activities, and we could get the response from most of the organizations saying that 50% of our CSR activities would be focusing on social related, 25% on environment, and 25% on economy. The reason is there is a shift that the organizations have taken, especially during the pandemic time, because most of the CSR activities have got changed from environmental orientation to the social related, because most of the societies got affected and impacted because of the COVID-19. So that's why most of the organizations have oriented their particular activities towards this particular dimension. And the most significant ones is to help bring in customers and create a good business entry and provide and improve the society and the environment. These are the reasons, significant reasons why the organizations have focused on the social related dimension. If we could see the response, in what way the organizations got benefited and what is the biggest achievement they have achieved across the CSR among all the 7 sectors, we try to map them, and certain sectors have felt that they have achieved a very high benefit, or their benefits were reached a very high level of achievement in certain sectors, in certain areas. So we try to map them based on the level of achievement, and certain sectors have expressed their response that they have really achieved this particular objective to a very high level, and to a medium level and a low level, and the logistics are given in the table. We don't have time to go through all of them. So this is mapped based on the response, and this is what we could say that in some sectors they have achieved to a high level, and they have also achieved to a low level. If you look at the aviation sector, which is largely operated by the Oman flagship airlines, then what does, looking at the final objective, what are the organizations thinking about COVID, especially during the pandemic time? Where does CSR stand in Oman? From the responses that we got from the companies that we have surveyed, they felt that, and we got a surprising result to disclose that the CSR activities they were taking up has really increased to an extent, but it is only expressed by 50% of the companies, not all the companies, or not all the companies have reported this increase. Only 50% of the companies reported that they have really boosted, or they have really increased their CSR activities to an extent of 75%. Now, apart from that, as a downside, we already know that there are a lot of restrictions during pandemic. But how does this happen with the CSR, especially with organizations, is the pandemic has really caused a lot of challenges and restrictions, but that has also come in a way of opening new opportunities and opening new ways to facilitate socially responsible actions. And some of them we could find out from the companies. They have looked into donations for charity rather than meeting people and doing some activities with the society. They could also come up with contributions for health services, providing medical service facilities for the people who are affected. Certain organizations have come forward in donating COVID relief fund, providing educational kits for disabled, providing awareness for social distancing, shelter, food, and medical facilities for displaced population. And certain organizations have also raised fund which can be used in different areas to build the economy. Coming to the conclusion from our study, what we could say is CSR activities is a very crucial activity or an event for every organization, especially to focus in gaining social recognition, and especially when it is to be implemented in certain kind of tight restricted conditions. Definitely COVID-19 has really made a way for the organizations to implement it. And COVID-19 was considered as a worthwhile opportunity for CSR, especially for those organizations who have really gone ahead to implement it. And at this time, companies have really gained recognition. And we can see that in the media also through different activities those companies have done. And definitely the improvement in the performance was really felt by those companies during this time. And apart from that, CSR during this particular time has provided access to the companies to reach to the market and by their different actions so that they can promote their business. And finally, the socially responsible activities taken forward by the society really give a very good consumer acceptance and a willingness on part of every person to purchase, because that's going to ultimately make way for sustainable business and also improve the performance to the organizations. And at the end, to have a look at some of the gist of the initiatives taken by Oman. There's a big list which is listed out in the paper, but I'm not going to show everything here, but a gist of what initiatives Oman has taken and what are those organizations. Omantel has come forward, especially during COVID time, in providing 3-dimensional printers for hospitals and to the ministry. Shell Oman Oil has spent a lot of money to the tune of 75,000 Omani Riyal in providing COVID testing kits for the Ministry of Health. And Oman Oil has provided fuel cards for volunteers, especially during COVID time. And so have Port and Free Zone has contributed around 60% of their profits towards providing medical facilities to the affected communities in the region. So these are some of the gist. And thank you for listening to my presentation, and thank you for sparing your time. I hope it was informative. And if you have any questions, we'll try to answer them.
Let me just interject. Thank you very much, Dr. Henry, for this brief presentation. And it seems that corporate social responsibility is a major part now of most organizations for sustainable development. Let me open the floor if there is any question, because I don't see any question in the chat box. So any question for Dr. Henry with regard to the paper he has presented? Okay, seems clear, but let me raise one question. I mean, now we are talking about corporate social responsibility, and organizations have to implement them to really benefit from them. But also within the pandemic, COVID-19, most organizations may not have the resources or financial resources. And then if they want to implement corporate social responsibility, that's also going to cost them money. So how do you balance between, do I spend money that I don't have, or what do I do in this kind of situation? Because COVID is really impacting on organizational financial situations.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We already know that it's a fact that the pandemic has really created a very financial constraint on part of every organization, and it's a big challenge. And that's one of the challenge which the organizations have experienced. And when we look at the results, what we could find out is not all organizations have really felt that the COVID-19 pandemic is going to be a very good opportunity. So in fact, we could only get a positive response from 50% from the sectors that we have served. Apart from that, the organizations or the companies where they are standing at a very good financial status have really allocated some amount of fund to fundraising, but organizations where they are very not that much level or having a very good economic status, say for example, small and medium enterprises, they would definitely tend to get affected, and they would not be willing that much to take up any kind of activity, especially during this time. So it's definitely a constraint. We totally agree, but the study really opens us to study further what could be the alternatives these small and medium enterprises have to take, especially in going forward with the CSR activities. Because assume the fact that the pandemic is going to continue for a long time, and these organizations cannot sit without any kind of social responsible activities, because at the end, it's going to impact their business, and it's also going to narrow down their impression on the society. So we can study further. There's a gap there. So that's an opportunity for us to study what kind of mechanisms further small industries or small medium enterprise has to take forward apart from the larger firms?
Okay, let me just, there is another question came through. How can CSR without resources impact on the economic and social environment, I assume?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Resources are very important for taking up the CSR. And what we could understand from the organization structure is every organization would definitely have a policy which is normally mandated in their operational aspects, which is called as sustainable development policy. So there could be certain amount of allocation of the funds which the organization at the beginning of their operation could have categorized under CSR activities. And apart from that, the resources normally, as the pandemic has really opened opportunities for online, so it may not be necessary that most of the organizations have to implement or have to spend that particular money in reaching out to the society, because most of the areas that organizations have felt is in donations, online donations, or trying to invite stakeholders or trying to invite goodwill people who are willing to donate for a CSR fund. There are also certain organizations which work for charity, so organizations are linking up with them, not necessarily required to generate generate the resources within themselves. So they could tie up with different other companies, or they could tie up with different other sectors where they are involving in charity or donations. So we can see certain examples in certain other areas which we have not focused, especially in organizations in Asia, South Asia, where they have not had that much of resources, but they have tied up with certain other organizations where they are willing to spend money through charity.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. I have a question, but I'll only allow you 2 minutes to answer the question, no more. So it says here, as per research findings, any specific reasons behind not focusing on ethics through CSR?
Thank you, Doctor, for the question. Basically, if you look at the definition of CSR, there is an ethical standards and ethical options for taking forward the sustainable development. And CSR definitely requires ethical options, like any kind of activity that we normally take forward, it should benefit the whole part of the society without any bias. The reason why organizations have not considered as one of the options is, the reason is because they have not got that opportunity to reach down to the public, reach down to the level of meeting the community or involving in certain kind of activities. So that could be one of the reasons. And there are also other sectors which could be, which we have not considered a part of a study. They could have considered more of the ethics and social concerns. So maybe because of the pandemic situation, what is more important for the society, that's how the organizations have oriented. But if you look at the CSR activities pre-COVID, there is a difference in the activities that are done by organizations pre-COVID and during COVID. So there is a clear demarcation where the pre-COVID CSR activities mostly focus on the economy as well as the environmental applications. But because of the society that is getting affected, I think there is a shift in the organizations to focus more on social concerns, not much on ethical issues.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Henry. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the conference for your participation and your presentation. And I guess now it's time to move to the next paper and the next presenter. So thank you, Dr. Henry.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving this opportunity.
Thank you. Now we have the next paper, which is titled Corporate Governance Best Practices Aligned with Oman Vision 2040, The Way Forward. The paper will be presented by Mr. Abdulaziz El Sinani. I'll give you a quick introduction on who he is. Abdulaziz actually is one of our commercial law students at the Modern College of Business under the Faculty of Business and Economics. He's also have a real wide working experience across diverse technical segment of the electricity sector. He's worked on defining organization direction, structure, implementing business process, optimization, change management. He's been working a lot within the industry, and he's a mature student, came back to the college to get his degree in commercial law. So let me really welcome Abdulaziz to the floor where he can present his paper. So I think Abdulaziz, welcome. And now you can share your slide and start your presentation. Are you okay, Abdulaziz, to share your slide?
Yes, Doctor, just 1 second.
Okay, yep, now it's coming.
Yes.
Now you can do the slideshow. Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
Good afternoon, esteemed guests and participants. It is my honor to participate in BEIC conference. My name is Abdulaziz Al-Sinani, and my background is in engineering, and I was always passionate to study the law. Now I am here as graduate student from MCBS. Before starting, I would like to thank Mr. Iban for his guidance and his continuous support, and as the second author in this research. Also, I would like to thank the Associate Dean, Dr. Hisham Mekt, for his leadership, support, and empowerment. My topic is corporate governance, best practices aligned with Oman Visions 2040. I'm going to take you through the following agenda, starting with introductions, then the research methodology, data analysis and findings, finally, the recommendations. As an introduction, and to make the link between the economy and the corporate governance and how the governance can lead to thrive the economic growth, it is worth to highlight that Oman economies relies on around 60% on fossil fuels. Since the last 5 years, the oil's price started to decline, which have an effect on economic stability. With the existing financial and economic challenges, the government set new strategy and realized the need to diversify the economy and to empower the private sector to be aligned with the prudent vision of 2040 set by His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq. The success of this vision will definitely be driven by corporations and companies which follow the best practices of good corporate governance. One of the key achievements towards Vision 2040 is the establishment of Oman Investment Authority. Around 60 to 70 companies are fully owned by the government, and around 240 companies the government has shared only. The purpose of this study is to identify the gaps in the existing governance practices and where are the potential areas of improvement, which will help the corporations in Oman to contribute towards the success of the Vision 2040. The key messages of this research that the governance is not only a framework, instead it has to be an actual implementation. The governance is not book sticking. The governance has to subject always to continuous improvement. The importance of these key messages is that the failure of any corporations due to poor governance will have its impact on the livelihood of people and many other stakeholders and the society at large. Moreover, the impact might be extended to affect the investor groups and their trust on the legislative system within the country. The research methodology was based on survey and questionnaires. There were 22 multiple choice type questions. There were 12 participants from private and government-owned company. 75 of the participants are male directors. The survey examines the respondent perception of the benefit of good corporate governance. 75% of the respondents believe that the strategic decision-making, business sustainability, and wealth maximization can be attained through good practices of governance. 16.7% of the respondents viewed that the governance as merely a compliance requirement. The participants have been asked whether they have real opportunity on actual training during the roles as board of directors. 50% of the respondents have the actual training program, whereas the other half was through the practices and experiences. Those who have the proper training can add more value to the business, and they have the appropriate skills in how to translate the governance policies and procedures into real practices. The survey also explored further the area of training and asked the respondent whether the civil or criminal liabilities due to misrepresentation or negligence have been well explained to the board members. 42 of the respondents were not aware of such legal liabilities. In my view, the rate is high, in which can indicate that individuals at these levels of the board haven't been educated fairly about the serious consequences in case of any failure in their duty of care. Board composition. We know that board composition can shape the high performance of the corporate governance, which can facilitate the proper decision and communication. 75 of the respondents in a view that the best size is between 5 to 7, and 25% of the respondents believe that 7 to 9 members in the boardroom is the appropriate size. The research concluded that the best size depends on the business type, business complexity, and the level of expertise and skills required. Board balance. In this aspect, one of the observations that the majority of shareholders prefer having directors with financial background, legal and auditing proficient. They believe that these skills of understanding financial statement and identifying financial and compliance issue can bring more value to the company. The questions have been asked to assess whether the industry experience can add value to the board discussions. Vast majority of the participants, with a rate of 91.7%, believe the industry experience is important within the board members to enable the board to see the business risk and to understand the operational aspects in order to make the right judgment, and also to direct the management to be more innovative and creative. Independent directors. The role of independent directors is to make their judgment without any personal interest, which gives them the advantage of discussion and assessment of the business affairs openly and transparently. 75% of the respondents believe that they are not truly independent and their judgment are being influenced by many factors, such as shareholders, conflict of interest, and the relations with the chairperson. Gender diversity. 83 of the respondents are in a view that women on the boardroom can add value to the business performance. They are more structured and fairer in making the decision. They can understand the customer's need and performance. They are more collaborative towards new ideas and solutions. Shareholders. We knew that the law separates between the ownership and the management. 75% of the respondents believe that their authority is being diluted because of the shareholders' influences. The risk due to such influence is high, as the shareholders will affect the credibility of the board decisions. The shareholders' influences can create distortion to the business. When the directors feel that their ability to be creative and innovative are restricted, they will tend to exercise less due diligence and will deal with the corporate governance as a compliance matters without any additional value being made. The questions have been asked to seek the respondent view in how to control and restrict the shareholders' interference. 83% agreed that a framework of regulations or new principles to be incorporated in the Code of Corporate Governance to define roles, responsibility, and liabilities. Before conclusion, there are still many interesting findings, and due to time limitation, I would urge those who are interested in corporate governance to go through the paper when it is going to be published. In conclusion, the most important aspect is the need for strong corporate governance culture, and this can be achieved through the following recommendation: new codes and principles. In order to instill the culture of good governance in Oman, the code concepts has to be extended to cover the other types of companies, such as closed joint stock companies and limited liabilities companies, either government-owned or private-owned. The regulators can develop and propose other new codes which can fit and relevant to the nature, size, and complexity of these types of companies. These codes should not be a mandatory to the companies, rather than a guideline to assist them to develop the culture of good governance. Then code review and amendment. Following the history of code in Oman, the first code was issued in 2001. It was noticed that the journey of the governance doesn't follow a regular interval for review and improvement. Therefore, it is highly recommended that the regulator fix a periodic interval for comprehensive review and amendment in order to address any gaps and weaknesses of the previous version and to capture any chances in economic and social environment. Corporate Governance Institute. In Oman, there are different agencies who are responsible for developing and monitoring the governance practices, such as Capital Market Authority, Muscat Security Market, Ministry of Commerce, and Central Bank of Oman. The coordination between these agencies and others industry associations might take a long time, which affect the quick response to the governance changes. The proposal is to establish an institute who will work as the ground and advisor for the best international governance practices while working with other regulators. The institute can study the implementation of the existing governance and propose any areas of improvement. It can help also to raise the level of awareness through studies and research. Training mandatory. From the survey finding, it was obvious that there is a lack of know-how and the actual skills in how to implement the governance. The survey is showing for the selected sample that 50% of the directors don't have the opportunity for the real training. The regulator has to enforce the training, and the directors has to be certified from accredited institutes. Otherwise, he or she will not be qualified as a potential candidate to work in boardroom. At the end, I would like to emphasize that there are many areas need to be studied and improved in corporate governance in order to bring efficiency and credibility to all organizations and companies, and which will have an impact on the economic system at large. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being with you in this conference.
Thank you very much, Abdulaziz. I have already a few questions, so let me fire them away. The first one says, what are the challenges facing Oman in implementing corporate governance?
And from my study, I can see the principle is there. The problem and the issue is the real implementation. As an example, I will give you an example for the selection. There is a committee. Okay, this is a nomination committee. This nomination committee is supposed to select the members. What I saw and my observations that the members have been selected through the shareholders themselves. So we can conclude that the real implementation is not there. This is the real challenge, how to translate the corporate governance to an actual implementation. This is the most challenging with the corporate governance.
Right. Taking further, so what do you really need to make sure the implementation is effective within Oman?
This is a collective effort. This is all institutes, all regulators, they have to work together to ensure that to happen through monitoring, through evaluating, through research. This is, and also to identify where are those gaps and try to close those gaps.
Right. Last question. So in your opinion and expertise within Oman, what would you say the rate of implementation of corporate governance in Oman? 10%, 20%, maybe 90%? What do you think?
And my understanding, the feeling, this is only impression, I can say it is 50 to 60%, the implementation. But the most important thing now, since now we have the Vision 2040, we have to ensure that the implementation reach the percentage of 100%.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was great work. Continue with your degree now, because I know that you're about to graduate and you're going to be facing the real world within the commercial environment. So good luck and thank you very much. I think now we have the last paper for this session, which is titled The Impact of Corporate Social Responsibility on Employees' Engagement, a Study on SMEs in Egypt, which is related to the first paper as well. And we have the presenter, Dr. Hazim Gaber. I haven't pronouncing his name correctly. He's an assistant professor at the Marketing and International Business Department at the Arab Academy for Science, Technology, and Maritime Transport in Egypt. He has done quite a lot of research on branding, social media, marketing, consumer behavior. So he's quite diverse within the area of marketing and international business. So now I will hand over the floor to Dr. Hazim to give us his presentation, and then we'll ask a few questions at the end of the session. So welcome, Dr. Hazim, to the scientific session.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very happy to present my work in this distinguished conference, and I wish to see you physically one day. Thank you very much, all the presenters, all of the organizing committee for doing that great work. So let me at the beginning introduce myself. I'm Dr. Hazem Rashid Gaber. I work in the Arab Academy for Science and Technology in Egypt. I'm an assistant professor. I got my PhD in 2017 from the University of Huddersfield in UK. I'm specialized mainly in marketing, but I have also some research interest in the field of management and organizational studies. I have published some papers in the area of CSR, in the area of consumer behavior, and in the area of social media marketing. So the title of the paper today is about the impact of corporate social responsibility, corporate social responsibilities on employees' engagement, a study on SMEs in Egypt. So we will now have a different perspective rather than Oman, rather than in a new country, which is Egypt. So as an introduction, as we know that the small and business enterprising are facing major challenges. These challenges are mainly related to the high level of uncertainty that these companies are facing. Anything that happens and emerges from the external environment. So this is very evident. The globalization, the competition with big organizations from different places in the world. So an important concept that has recently emerged in the literature is about the employees' engagement. So as we know and as we can find in the literature, that the word engagement is rising dramatically. If you find, you can find different papers in the area of engagement in the marketing, consumer engagement, and in the OBI studies, which is employees engagement. What is an engaged? What is engagement? My PhD was actually about the word engagement. It is when we have engaged, for example, employees, we have three dimensions of engagement: emotional engagement, cognitive engagement, and behavioral engagement. And emotional engagement is when an employee loves the workplace, he's absorbed in the workplace, he has high levels of loving towards the workplace. He's committed. If we talk about the cognitive engagement, employees they are think all the time in the work, in their tasks, what to do, and so on. Behavioral engagement is related to the level of the behavioral manifestations that can seen from employees, positive behaviors in the workplace, such as less absenteeism, participation, creativity, risk-taking, and so on. So it's very important nowadays to think about the quality of the workforce and how to improve the employees' engagement. So this paper mainly focuses on the relationship between the corporate social responsibility efforts of corporate social responsibility efforts of small and business enterprises on employees' engagement, because it has much of the excellent and the available literature has been focusing on the impact of corporate social responsibility on the consumers. So what's new in our paper that we are focusing on the impact of the corporate CSR in Egypt, the small and business enterprises on the level of employee engagement, with the aim of finding a relationship that can improve the performance of these organizations. The purpose of the article, as I said, is to examine the impact of CSR activities that are practiced by SMEs on employees' engagement. It focuses on CSR practices towards customers, employees, and the society. if we talk about the research importance, as I said, the vast majority of available literature has mainly focused on the relationship between CSR and consumers, how CSR impacts consumers in a positive way, how do the CSR, for example, improves the image of organizations, the image of companies, the image of products, and so on. However, little work has been done to examine how CSR activities affects employees' behaviors and attitudes, and specifically the employees' engagement that is examined in the paper. So we are focusing on also an important part of the paper is that it focuses on the CSR in Egypt, which has a totally different approach and way of thinking rather than more developed countries. As we know, the CSR in other countries, other developed countries, it's a broad concept. It's related to what so-called the stakeholder model of social responsibility, the relationship between the relation with the society, for example, recycling, relationship with the environment. However, as we know, the CSR in Arabic countries and in Egypt is mainly focusing about philanthropy and giving to the poor and charity. And happy Ramadan, of course. In the coming month, we will find all the companies in the ads, they are putting much budgets to do more CSR and to promote how they help the poor, how they help hospitals, how they help the charity in general. So the concept of CSR, the stakeholder perspective of CSR, on the other hand, focuses on the social responsibility that the company should do towards all stakeholders, such as employees. What are the fair practices towards employees? Do they treat employees fairly? Do they make work-life balance? Do they, for example, during the COVID-19 crisis, did they provide social distancing? Did they allow them to work from home and so on? And for example, another concern of the stakeholders approach of social responsibility is the relationship with customers. Of course, do they companies provide safe products? Do they provide fair pricing? Do they provide healthy products and so on? So this is important. Also, the effect of CSR on suppliers, on all the stakeholders in general that companies are interested in. So this is the paper starts by introducing the concept of CSR in as I said in this slide about the stakeholder approach of CSR. Then we are focusing on CSR in developing countries, which are characterized by less formalization. Still, we don't have clear metrics or clear guidelines. What is the CSR from Arabic perspective? What is the impact of, for example, the religion on the CSR practices? So it mainly focuses CSR in developing countries, Muslim countries. They are mainly, as I said, related to the philanthropic era, focusing on giving to the poor. However, there are some standards in Egypt. For example, the Egyptian Institute of Directors and Standard and Poor Foundations, they established a metrics to mention every year the 100 top companies that do CSR in Egypt. So this is our conceptual model. As I said, it's related, we developed it from the literature review, the relationship between the three types of CSR practices: CSR towards the society, CSR towards customers, and CSR towards employees, and the relationship with the three types of employee engagement. We are proposing 9 hypotheses. CSR towards the society has an significant influence on the 3 types of engagement: cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. The 3 types of CSR towards customers has a positive, significant relationship with cognitive, emotional engagement of employees, and the same goes for the CSR towards employees. So we have 9 hypotheses, as I said. How did we do our research? What is our methodology? We developed a questionnaire, so we followed a quantitative research approach for data collection and analysis. We collected the data from 226 managers working in small and medium enterprises in different cities in Egypt. Of course, because the paper was conducted in the last quarter of 2020, so we collected the data online. We used LinkedIn. It was very hard to meet the participants in person, so we conducted the questionnaire online. We used Google Docs. We used the social networking site LinkedIn to locate some companies through our relationships with some associations for small and medium enterprises. After a period of 2 months, we were able to collect 226 complete responses. The data were analyzed with Smart PLS, used a partial least square structure equation modeling. So this software is becoming very popular, and it is used in top journals to determine the relationship between variables to test the research hypothesis. It is powerful in analyzing small-sized samples. It doesn't need normal distribution, and it is very useful in analyzing complex models. Let's go to the results. Before validating our model, it was essential to assess the structural model. So we looked at the reliability. We used Cronbach alpha and composite reliability. All of the variables were above 0.7, which indicated that it possessed strong reliability. Then we looked at the factor loadings, outer loadings. We wanted to make sure that most or all items were above 0.7. After examining them, only two items were deleted based on examining the outer loading. Then, to examine the validity of the items and the constructs, we have 2 types, as you know, of course, 2 types of validity: the convergent validity. We looked at the average variance extracted of each construct. We made sure that each construct has an AVE above 0.5, which indicated its convergent validity. To test the discriminant validity, we examined the HTMT, heterotrait monotrait ratio, that it was suggested in a very recent article and is very common nowadays in examining discriminant validity, by making sure that the values are less than the recommended threshold of 0.85. And here is the outcome from the Smart PLS regarding the HT-MT ratio. Then, if we talk about the hypothesis testing, as I said, we used Smart PLS. We used a bootstrapping approach, which is required to make hypothesis testing. Only 3 hypotheses were supported, while the rest were rejected. As you can see in table 2, we examined path coefficients, t-values, significance level. We have only 3 significant hypotheses: the relationship between CSR and the society, CSR towards the society and cognitive engagement, the relationship between CSR towards the society and behavioral engagement, the relationship between CSR towards employees and emotional engagement, while the rest of the hypotheses were rejected as they had poor significant level, which is above 0.05. Here is the model outcome from the bootstrapping approach, which shows the findings that I have just mentioned. Let's talk about the discussion, which is the most important part. Our article mainly focused on the relationship between the three types of CSR and the three types of employees engagement. The findings showed we can conclude that there is much needed in the area of CSR, promoting CSR activities towards employees, because the relationship between it seems that the companies, small and medium enterprises, do not do much effort to promote what are they doing towards the society and the employees and the customers to their employees. So they should do more to be able to enhance the levels of employees engagement. As I said in the previous slide, this slide, that the CSR towards the society was the most important, and it is really expected because, as I said, because we are a religious Muslim country. If we talk about Arabic countries, the CSR towards the society is very important, and employees want to see more of these activities to be engaged. So if we talk now about the practical implications, the companies should focus, mainly the small and medium enterprises should focus mainly on the three types of CSR, not only one type, to be able to yield high levels of employees engagement. Finally, we have some limitations that our study was only conducted in Egypt. It was only conducted quantitatively. So more research needs to be done qualitatively and in other countries. Also, we can examine the impact of some demographic factors, such as the differences between ages, and the differences between work experiences in moderating the relationship between CSR and employees engagement. So really much has to be done in that area in further research. Thank you for your time, and I'm ready to receive your questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hazem, for this interesting presentation. I have one question here. It says, trying to see, do you think those statements with regard to CSR in Egypt, are they valid? In other words, I'm talking about the practices of CSR in Egypt. Is it really taking place, especially within SMEs? Or what is the percentage of those practices?
Actually, the CSR towards, we didn't calculate in that research the percentages of, and this is something very interesting to do in the analysis for further analysis. However, it seems that the most practices are related towards the society, towards helping the poor, towards, as I said, philanthropic activities, not related really to employee practices, safe working environment, and so on. So this is mainly the main, you will find the questionnaire in the full paper, which shows really what are the practices that we asked managers about them. Okay.
Right. So another question coming through is asking, what is the value added of CSR in Egypt?
What is the value of CSR in Egypt?
Yes.
Many articles has really explored that area about whether CSR impacts the brand image in a positive way, the marketing attitudes towards products and services. So CSR is growing, of course, and many companies, as I said in my talk, are focusing on, for example, Ramadan and how to promote, because we are religious society. So it's very important for us to see that, for example, McDonald's and big companies are doing much CSR, helping the poor, and we must think that because I've done another research about the relationship between promoting CSR on social media on the brand image. The most posts that we can see in Facebook, for example, if McDonald's put some posts related to helping the poor, related to helping Pepsi when they make a league for helping young kids practice football and so on, they get too much engagement. So this means that we are ready for CSR. However, really CSR is related to the religion. We are not still prepared to something, to the concept, to the stakeholder concept, such as the environment. We are not. I was last week in Carrefour. I found a lady asking the guy, Carrefour supermarket, hypermarket, as you know, the a city want, sorry, a female wanted, she bought 10 items and she wanted 10 bags for each item. Each item she wanted a separate bag. You can't convince her that the plastics can harm the environment at the moment. So the most CSR activities are related towards the religious activities, Ramadan, charity, philanthropic activities. I hope I have answered the question.
Thank you very much. I think that's all what we have time for, because I know we run a bit late and we have another session in 5 minutes. So let me thank all the presenter. They have done a wonderful job, and I'm sure they'll continue with their papers. And once it's published, you'll see it in the journal in black and white. So good luck and thank you very much, and have a lovely day. And I will see you in the upcoming sessions. So goodbye for now.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Now, you hearing me? Yes, okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to being here with you in this session. My name is Islam Abdelbari. I'm an Egyptian economist and I'm assistant professor of economics in Arab Academy for Science and Technology. Thank you for joining us in this important session, maybe one of the important sessions in the conference, which entitled Entrepreneurial Ecosystem, Academic Entrepreneurship and Entrepreneurship. As economists, entrepreneurship is very important in terms of economics because it's the best way to allocate resources from different social class. In addition, it involves creation and ideas that's very important to drive economic growth or any kind of economic reform which is required for that. Simply because entrepreneurship create positive externalities. So entrepreneurs only create jobs for themselves, but they also create opportunities for others. Nowadays, entrepreneurship is one of the main tools to fight inequality and poverty. So we will enjoy listening for our papers today. So we have 3 outstanding papers. The first one, it's about the economic growth, and actually it's right between them in terms of entrepreneurs. So the first one, the entrepreneur and economic growth. The second one is about educational sector, and the second one is again is about educational sector, but from other perspective. So we will start the presentation now. The first paper entitled The Effect of Global Entrepreneurship Index on the Economic Growth in Arab Countries, which written by Mr. Muhammad Mahrous, Dr. Csr Dimensions, and Mrs. Riham Rifat. Mr. Muhammad Mahrous was supposed to be the presenter of the paper, but he apologized for participating for a serious condition. By the way, Mr. Muhammad Mahrous is an economic researcher, and he is working as a head of economic research and advocacy department at Alexandria Business Association. He is also working as a researcher and consultant for the Union of Arab Chambers since 1890. So we present his talk through recording video. So the technical committee now will share his presentation, and Ms. Riham, his co-author, will share the questions part.
Greetings, everyone. I am Muhammad Mahrous. Today, I'm going to deliver a presentation on our conceptual study, which is titled The Effect of Global Entrepreneurship Index on the Economic Growth in the Arab Countries. Firstly, I'd like to lay out some definitions and the concepts, starting with entrepreneurship, which is recognized as the catalyst for development and addressing sustainable development challenges, mainly concerned with eliminating poverty, amplifying employment opportunities, as well as economic participation and the empowerment of socially disadvantaged groups, such as women and youth. And according to the ILO, the strong economic growth in developing countries in recent years has been described by being jobless growth, which is due to the lack of job creation and insufficiency of job creation to meet the market needs. Also, entrepreneurship has a remarkable effect on the economic condition. It is indicated by the broad census of economic researchers that entrepreneurship stimulates economic development and also economic growth. And as a result of that, and as a proof of that, GEI, which is the Global Entrepreneurship Index, which is the core of our study and our presentation, estimated that 3% improvement in the global GEI would add $7 trillion to the global GDP. Also, during the last couple of years, global economic situation experienced some kind of unrest and recessions due to several reasons, such as US-Chinese trade war, the Brexit, macroeconomic stress in several countries, among which Argentina and Turkey, also the interruption of auto industry in Germany, and last but not least, COVID-19, which caused and still causing a great effect on the economic situation. Consequently, the global economic growth that was peaked at almost 4% in 2017, diminished to 3.6% in 2018, and also deteriorated further to 2.4 at the end of 2019. In 2020, as announced by the IMF, it is a negative economic growth of 3.5%, negative 3.5% due to the crisis of COVID-19. As a result, developed and developing countries combined started to promote and enhance and adopt the concept of entrepreneurs and enhancing the entrepreneurial or the ecosystem of entrepreneurship. Why? To uplift their economic growth, as they believe in the role of entrepreneurship to achieve economic growth. Entrepreneurship ecosystem, it is referring to the factors and policies that affect entrepreneurs, like the environment surrounding the entrepreneur, and it is categorized to consists of 6 main domains: policy, finance, culture, market, human capital, and support. Those domains are vital for any entrepreneur to grow and succeed. And during the last decades, for the Arab countries, it was tough years due to the political instability and the Arab Spring revolutions, and also some political unrests in some of Arab countries. As a result, government or the Arab government resorted to adopt entrepreneurship policies and promoting improving the conditions for entrepreneurs to achieve economic growth through them. And not only economic growth, that will help also in eradicating or reducing poverty and unemployment. Our research aim is to examine the effect of GEI and its pillars, which are 14 pillars, on economic growth of the Arab countries, and extract from them the weaknesses or the strengths and weaknesses of the Arab countries, and propose recommendations upon which to the Arab governments to improve the entrepreneurship ecosystem and achieve economic growth. My presentation is structured as follows. We will start with the literature review, identifying the research gap, going through the methodology and empirical studies, and then extracting the conclusion and the recommendations for the countries that the study focused on. Firstly, I would like to, starting with the literature, there are several definitions for entrepreneurs. We have chosen the most common 3 definitions. As Kassim said, the entrepreneur is someone who has special skills that enable him to take decisions about the coordination of limited resources under uncertain conditions. Also, the GEI explained that entrepreneurs is a person who has the vision to see an innovation and the ability to bring it to the market. Also, there is another definition of entrepreneurship, is the process in which entrepreneur discovers, evaluates, exploits opportunities, and creates future goods and services. How we can measure entrepreneurship activities? Actually, there wasn't a good indicator that measured entrepreneurship activities. There was a couple of the most commonly used indicators, which are Global Entrepreneurship Monitor and the total early stage entrepreneurial activities, to calculate the entrepreneurship activities. But actually, entrepreneurship is a complex and multidimensional factor that cannot be limited to the number of new firms or the number of firms that in early stages of production or early stages in the market. And as for Zoltan, he recommended also that entrepreneurship activities is not only limited to quantity of companies, but also it is the quality of the system and the market as a whole. As a result, the Global Entrepreneurship and Development Institute developed a measurement of the entrepreneurial activities, which is the Global Entrepreneurship Index. Global Entrepreneurship Index, it is developed to measure the entrepreneurship ecosystem. It identifies this ecosystem as a new way to conceptualize the increasingly complex and interdependent social system being created. It is divided into 14 components. We will go through them as we proceed, and each of those pillars contains two measures representing the micro and the macro level, analyzing the 14 pillars, including institutional, which is the macro, like concerned with the government and the overall policies, and another one concerned with the micro level, which is the individuals and the factors affecting the entrepreneur and the business owner. As for the pillars, I will just go through them quickly. Like the pillars covers all of the factors that could affect any business owner, like opportunity perception, startup skills, risk acceptance, networking, culture support, opportunity startup, technology absorption, human capital, competition, product innovation, process innovation, high growth, internationalization, and risk capital. So, as we said that I will not give, like, as you know, that time is short. I will like try to move on, not take too much time in explaining each of the pillars. I would go through to the Arab countries situation. The Arab countries actually currently suffer from poverty and unemployment, among other problems, but those are the problems we are mainly concerned with here. The inordinate poverty levels in the Arab region exceeds its expectations previously, and actually 2/3 of the citizens falling into whether being categorized as poor or susceptible to being poor. The overall unemployment rate in the Arab countries is around 10% in 2018, which is considered among the highest in the world, and actually it's almost double of the global average, which is 4.5%. And actually university curriculums in the Arab countries are not fully aligned to the labor market requirements, and actually there are almost 56% of the Arab graduates realize themselves to be unprepared to join the market. So there is a research gap that we need to link or try to attribute the effect of entrepreneurship with relation to the economic development and economic growth in the Arab countries. So we will examine each of the 14 pillars and its effect on economic growth through set of indices. As we can see, we have selected 5 indicators, which are Global Competitiveness Index, Ease of Doing Business Index, Human Development Index, Logistics Performance Index, and the Global Innovation Index. Why? To investigate the relationship between the GEI and the global economic growth of the Arab countries. This research will build an association between the GEI and those indices for a set of countries. We choose the countries that are covered in the GEI, which are only 12 Arab countries, and then the selected entities represent a prerequisite or considered a prerequisite for any investor who want to invest in a given country. Like, for example, if any investor want to explore or approach a new country, those are the first 5 indicators that he focus or check before entering the new market. As we can see from this here, the Global Entrepreneurship Index is our independent variable, and there are set of moderate variables who will link the Global Entrepreneurship Index with the economic development. As we can see that nowadays countries are evaluating its level of economic development and the economic performance through some or all of these indices. That's why we used them to link the GEI with the economic development through this those indices. Here, the indices components, as you know, each of the indices is composed of sub-index and also pillars under each sub-index. I will not take too much time in this table. So we will move on to the methodology. The methodology is that there is an association between the GEI and the selected indices, although each index has different purpose and different pillars and measures. They are introduced in this study for comprehensive purpose, as they are all reflect the economic situation of a country and its potential growth in the future. Firstly, we will try to attach or like match each of the indices with the GEI, starting with the Global Competitiveness Index. It is concerned with measuring and evaluating the factors that collectively ascertain the level of the country's productivity, which is considered the major contributor to the improvement of the standards of living. And the aspects measured and evaluated by the Competitiveness Index are considered part of the ecosystem pillars assessed by the GEI. As a result, any improvements in the entrepreneurial ecosystem pillars would be reflected in any of the categories of the Competitiveness Index, and then will improve or help to improve the economic performance of a country. And as of for ease of doing business indicator, the ease of doing business measures the aspects of business regulation. It's concerned mainly with the policies and the government regulations and the effectiveness of the business environment under which the government operates. Also, it exhibits the role of government and policymakers in regulating the market mechanism and correcting or eliminating any market deficiencies. And consequently, ease of doing business affects entrepreneurial activities heavily. Why? It involves the decisions and regulations that govern all of the businessmen, not only entrepreneurs. So any improvement of the country's ranking or performance in the ease of doing business will be totally reflected as improvement in GEI and hence achieving economic development or economic growth. Logistics performance indicator presents evaluation on trade logistics performance across more than 160 countries. It is based on quantitative techniques to measure the transport and logistic performance. Also, it affects entrepreneurial activities to a large extent, as it associates the market logistics performance with the performance of business firms, which is considered one of the main elements of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And as for the Human Development Index, which is composed of three main dimensions, namely health, which is measured by life expectancy, education, which is measured by the school years of schooling, and also standard of living, which is measured by per capita gross national income. And as we can see that HDI is mainly focusing on human factor, and there is no entrepreneurship without entrepreneur, and that entrepreneur is a human. So any development that happens to the human being will be totally reflected as improvement in the GEI ranking, and also will be reflected as improvement in the economic performance of a country. And finally, the GII, which is a Global Innovation Index, which helps to evaluate innovation in the business environment. It consists of two main sub-indices, input and output, and also it aims to detect and evaluate a country's innovation, as well as providing guidance for policymakers on how to upscale innovation levels and have a highly productive, creative, and innovative population. Of course, if we have a productive, creative, innovative population, that would be like a way to help entrepreneurs and providing a good ecosystem for those entrepreneurs to operate and enhance their businesses. Of course, it affects entrepreneurship ecosystem pillars directly and hence affecting the score of a country and also affecting GDP of the country. As we can see from the table, that lays the 12 Arab countries with the score in the GEI. And as we can see that the Gulf countries is performing better than the other countries, especially United Arab Emirates and Oman, as they have large score in high growth and internationalization, also in risk capital. So we can see from the following or the previous table that the analysis shows Gulf countries leading in the GEI. It is also noticeable that almost all of the Arab countries suffer in areas such as technological absorption, competition, culture support, startup skills, risk acceptance, startup perception, and internationalization. While they have, most of the Arab countries also have good scores in pillars such as product innovation, risk capital, and the human capital. And as we can see from the table that UAE and Oman lead the 12 Arab countries, it is observed that the two top countries lead due to their scores in risk capital and the high growth in human capital and the product innovation. However, they suffer, as we said, in other areas. And as for our indices, that aside from the GEI, we have 5 indices: the GCI, which is the competitiveness, also the Gulf region, our Gulf countries lead. It is clear that the Gulf countries lead in this index as well, and it is obvious that all of the Arab countries suffer in pillars such as innovation capacity, followed by labor market, and so on. So, and as for, sorry, okay. Moving forward. Sorry for that. Okay, GCI here. Okay, LPI, Logistics Performance Indicator. Also, we can see that United Arab Emirates and Oman is leading in this index. Additionally, most of the countries show weak performance concerning custom pillars, followed by quality of logistics services, while having good results concerning timelines pillar, followed by ease of arranging shipments and tracking and tracing pillars. Ease of doing business, we are like the table shows the score of the Arab countries in the index and overall and in each of the pillars, and also here HDI, DII. Moving on to the conclusion and recommendations, from the table we can, the result of indicating
could you stop the
GCI affects
due to the limited time for presentation, it exceeds the time. Could from technical committee, could you forward the video until the last 2 minutes, because the time is already we exceeded. So please, could you move for conclusion? Or Ms. Riham, do you want to present the conclusion, or you want to say the conclusion of your paper? It's much better to do that. Mr. Riham. Mr. Riham, could you open your mic? Okay. So, technical committee, could you move forward until the last 2 minutes for the video?
are working on focus group discussions and surveys to get information that is qualitative information. As the literature, we mentioned that entrepreneurship activity is not only a quantifying methodology, but also a qualitative methodology that would reflect the environment entrepreneurs would work on. So our aim through this research is to show the importance of GEI, and that government can not be like scattered between all of those entities. It can focus its attention on improving the GEI, focus on the 14 pillars that would each of the pillars the government invest in and provide policies that would improve that pillar would be reflected in one or more of the 5 indices that we mentioned. And as you know all, that any investor who wants to open a new company or enter a new market would firstly look at one or the 5 of the selected indices. That is the conceptual framework we tried to illustrate, that the countries try to focus on GEI instead of focusing on several indices, which would take too much effort and too much money to achieve. So we can like concentrate on the GEI, improving GEI that would be reflected in eliminating poverty, providing employment opportunities, and also achieving economic growth. Thanks for your concentration, and I hope that I didn't take too much time. Thanks to you, and it's my pleasure to be amongst you. And I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I'm ready for any questions and or any inquiries that you can ask. Thanks.
We have to thank the author and the presenter, Mr.
Greetings,
Mahrous.
everyone. I am Mohammed Mahrous. Today, I'm going to deliver a presentation on our.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Mahrous, for his presentation. And Ms. Riham, if you have in 1 minute any comment, or you still have an internet connection.
Mr. Islam, good morning or good evening. Sorry, I faced a technical issue. It's my pleasure to be and my team a part of the great event. I'm ready for your questions, and actually it's a pilot of our paper or of our study, and it will be followed by qualitative paper based on focus group to support our study. And I think we missed the most important part in the presentation, which is, sorry, it was too long. Sorry about that. And I'm ready for your questions, if anyone has.
Okay, so if anyone have a question, please raise your hand, or you can write your question on chat. Okay. So, Mr. Ham, my questions for you is about the economic theory, which you will use for analyze the behavior of the economic growth, especially in the Arab countries.
Yes.
So you mentioned for a lot of things related to the Global Entrepreneurship Index and other indexes, which is used now currently to improve the economic growth and development. But I think if you develop like this model, you have to have a theoretical basis in order to explain the economic growth. So this is my only comment for you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome, Mr. Islam. Thank you. Thank you all.
So thank you very much, Mr. Ham, for joining us. Now, the second paper, which is entitled Promoting Entrepreneurship Education to Adapt and Innovate in the New Normal, written by Dr. Hisham Magid and Siraj Muhammad. It was presented by Dr. Siraj, apologized to joining us for his special conditions. So Dr. Ravi will be instead of him. Dr. Ravi is Assistant Professor of Accounting and Finance, Department of Business and Economics in Modern College of Business and Science. since 2012 from, of course, Muscat, Oman. And he has experienced more than 20 years in college teaching. So Dr. Ravi can start. The floor is yours, and you have 15 minutes for presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the organizers, respected chair, and co-presenters and the audience. I would like to bring to the ideas that we explored in our research paper entitled Promoting Entrepreneurship Education to Adapt and Innovate in the New Normal. So let me begin with the presentation slides. So the primary purpose of the research is to identify the impact of the pandemic on the business organizations, especially in Oman. The primary purpose is to develop a conceptual model that would help the entrepreneurs to get rid of these unforeseen, unexpected economic situations due to COVID-19 pandemic. So you would have seen many research papers on the entrepreneurial success. The papers would have identified the factors that would impact the success of the entrepreneurs. So there are personal factors, social factors, personal psychological factors, socio-economic factors. All these factors would definitely cause success on the entrepreneurs.
Sorry, Dr. Ravi.
Hello.
Are you sharing your slides or?
Yeah.
Just make sure that it's shared.
Yeah, it's. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank
exactly. You. Yeah. Sorry. So regarding this, the main purpose of the paper is to identify the factors that would help the entrepreneurs to be successful and to be successful with sustainability. Sustainable success, how to enjoy even during the pandemic period. That is the primary purpose of the research. So we have entrepreneurial education at collegiate level in Oman. So we provide, it has been mandatory by the government of Oman that the students have to complete an entrepreneurial course before they graduate. So we have taken that idea into mind. So what type of the skills and competencies students can get out of this research so that they can be successful in their endeavor as self-owners, business owners. So we see the idea into two aspects. First of all, before pandemic, we had so many research papers that analyzed, that explored the success of the business entrepreneurs. So they identified factors influencing the success. But those factors may not be sufficient enough, may not be as effective as what we have identified in this research paper during this pandemic period. Because the pandemic period has become now new normal, which means we are going to get along with this situation for a quite long period of time. It's not like the financial crisis that we had in 2007-8. It had an impact for a period of time. Aftermath was for a period of time. Then the corporate world has bounced back. But that is not the situation that we are experiencing right now due to pandemic. It's going to be sustaining, it's going to be there. So business organizations have to work along with this forcing, challenging business environment. Therefore, the so-called factors that would provide success for entrepreneurs may not be as effective as what we are facing right now during this pandemic period. So that has been the basic motto of the research. So we identified a conceptual framework by which we have given a framework to the entrepreneurs to work on that. Actually, the validity of the conceptual framework has to be tested by further research. So let me take you to basically the conceptual framework was built upon the literature review, evidences from the literature review. So for the sake of the research, we divided the literature evidences into these two categories. Of course, there are some research papers which have identified the success factors of an entrepreneur. For example, As I told you, personal factors, socioeconomic factors, psychological factors, those factors I didn't mention here due to time constraint. But I have brought to you the negative aspects of the pandemic, how pandemic has affected the business world during this period. So it has led to temporary closure, permanent closure of business organizations, reducing the number of employees, reducing the salary pay scale, all these, the ill effects the employees have faced, the business organizations have faced. But that has led to the problems in the country as well, like unemployment, supply chain disruptions, underutilization of resources, all these things, even the countries, even the developed countries have faced during this pandemic. Therefore, there is a need for identifying something more than the normal factors. That is what the literature evidences have suggested us. But in spite of these difficulties during pandemic situations, there are a few entrepreneurs who could be successful, who sustained with their activities and they grew in the market, So we approached those people and identified the factors for framing with the help of the literature evidence, we identified those factors suggested by these successful entrepreneurs. So here we divided the literature evidences into two categories. First of all, we collected the evidences that depicted the entrepreneurial status. The second one, what are all the skills and competencies that help to the entrepreneurs to be resilient to the situations? In order to become successful during this crisis situation, first of all, the basic quality is they should be resilient. So the business resilience is exactly what is required. So what type of factors that would promote resilience? That would be the outcome of the paper. So what is the methodology that we have framed? Actually, as I already told you, it's a conceptual paper. So based on the empirical evidences of the past research papers, we identified a model. The model is giving 2-3 important factors that are necessary to be implemented by the entrepreneurs during the period of crisis. Those entrepreneurial skills that we require during this period, we call key entrepreneurial qualities to sustain and grow during the crisis time. And moreover, the sustainability should go like the business, the entrepreneurs should be successful and they should be able to take the business to the next generation as well. That is what we mean sustainability in this research. And this is the model that we have developed. Basically, the entrepreneurial skills would lead to develop business skills and technical skills, So through the business skills and technical skills, what are the areas that we cover under business skills and technical skills? The entrepreneurs will be able to cover, creative thinking, self-efficacy, risk-taking, and the internal locus control. Internal control, how they will be able to change their, for example, the internal locus control. What we mean to say is, if something is happening to the business, which leads to a failure, a particular area. So rather than identifying the causes or reasons on the outside environment, I have to analyze, I have to critically analyze myself, my business organizations, my plans and my strategies and plans, So where we are lacking actually, where is the problem in my organizations? What are the bottlenecks that I need to concentrate and fix the problem? So those type of the qualities are there in the entrepreneurial skills that is covered with business and technical skills. This is already there. This is already there. Because of these skills, many entrepreneurs have been successful. But what the model has suggested, the next area is the capabilities needed during the crisis period is entrepreneurial resilience, then agility and social entrepreneurial skill. Agility is nothing but changing to the new environment quickly, without wasting much time, utilizing the resources in an effective way, adapting yourself to the new situations, So ultimately, that would give you the resilience. And the social entrepreneurial skills. What we mean to say is the skills that you possess should not give value to yourself. It should provide benefits to the society where you are working. It should provide the public at large, the country as well. So that is called the social responsibility skills. We mean to say the social value. It should reach the society. It should reach the country. That is what we mean to say. These are the three special qualities the entrepreneurs should develop so that the people can be successful, and the success can be taken to the next generation as well. So this is what we mean to say the entrepreneurial success during the period of pandemic. So thanks to the pandemic period, in a way that it has given a new dilemma, it has given a new insight into the entrepreneurial success by identifying, by implementing these features.
Dr. Ravi, you have 5 minutes, and please.
Yeah, so these are the skills
slideshow.
that is required.
Next
Entrepreneurial
slideshow.
resilience. Yeah, sure. So entrepreneurial resilience, to attain this particular quality, these are the factors we identified. Of course, thanks to the literature review, and we identified these qualities are essentially needed for entrepreneurs to become resilient to these unforeseen situations. And the social entrepreneurial skills, effective use of resources that will help you, that will benefit you as well as the society and the country. And agility, we have two types of agilities. One is personal, the other one is organizational. In both the cases, how the entrepreneurs are able to use the resources, are able to utilize, create opportunities and utilize opportunities without wasting much time. So that is what the study has identified. These are all the references which have helped us to identify these ideas. And there are certain limitations. Of course, we developed the model. The model has to be validated by further research. So maybe based on the regional context, the study can be explored further and it can be validated. If any further improvements required, it can be modified accordingly. So this is what I would like to mention today. So already the concluding remarks I have identified and I have told you as per the study. So with that, I would wind up the session. Thank you for the opportunity, and any questions I would like to answer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ravi, for your presentation. Actually, your presentation was outstanding, and you explained everything in the paper. Entrepreneurship, especially after COVID-19 pandemic, it's very important to analyze it and to understand what's going on the ground. You are talking about very important point when you, especially most of we're talking about entrepreneurship, talking about from a private perspective or financial perspective. But here, when we are talking about social perspective, it's very important. The concept of the agility and resilience, you are talking about two level, personal and institutional as well. It's important because what we are looking for to achieve sustained and inclusive economic growth or development, which is could happen through encouraging more entrepreneurship activities. Thank you again for your presentation. Now we have 5 minutes or less. If anyone have any questions, you can raise your hand or you can write it on the chat. Okay, so no questions. So Dr. Ravi, could you please explain how we can apply this conceptual framework to applied research? If we try, I think the only possible way to do apply this conceptual model through qualitative research. So yeah. Please, if you can give me a brief about how we can apply this conceptual model, it would be very helpful.
Exactly. So thank you, Doctor, for the question. Actually, the idea of the research is to promote these skills on the graduates who are doing their education at the college level. Before they graduate, they are learning right now the entrepreneurial skills, how to become entrepreneurs. So because of these external conditions imposed on the educational system, the syllabus and the educational, the policy makers, in the country, they should incorporate these skills into the curriculum, whereby theoretically, the students will be able to know what type of educational skills required to face these unforeseen situations that is going to be for a longer duration. So obviously they'll be able to go into the field where they could implement what they learned in the classroom, So apart from that, we can arrange some interactions between the people who are really successful in the business world and the students, so that the gap can be filled in. What students require to be resilient, to be successful during this pandemic period, they could get the ideas from the practical ideas and exposure from the people who are really doing the business, so that these people can take the idea to the environment and they can make the whole country to be resilient towards, against these unforeseen situations. So the conceptual model should be implemented from the college level. Obviously, after they get into the field, get into the practical field, we can conduct some researches whereby what type of problems they face while implementing these ideas, and is that environment is really conducive enough to be successful. All the things can be understood by further research. I hope I answered.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. There's a question from Shadi Abu Zaid. He said, I would ask if technical or technological enterprise require also the same skills and affected by the same effect of pandemic, or it's an opportunity for them. So his question
actually, so all walks of life, see, the pandemic
require the same skills or not, and is it the opportunity for them or not?
Thank you, Doctor, for the question. Actually, the pandemic has affected all walks of life. No industry you can say that is exceptional from the clutches of the pandemic. So it has affected. Invariably, the volume and the magnitude might be different. Even though the technical the industry, which I don't know which technical industry you mean to say, maybe the IT industry or any other technical industry, it has its own the sufferings, because of COVID-19. So it should be customized. The research paper has given a model conceptual idea. So it can be taken as the base, and according to your nature of the business you do, nature of industry, nature of the outsiders or the agencies to which you have the communication, So you can call the stakeholders. Based on the nature of the stakeholders, nature of business you perform, you can customize the ideas, and you can identify the skills by doing further research into that area.
Thank you. Any other questions? Feedback for authors? Okay. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation, Dr. Ravi. And now we will move for the third paper, which is entitled Impact of Entrepreneurship Education on Entrepreneurial Perspective Among Students in Oman, which is written by Dr. Rehan Saeed, Dr. Hisham Magid, and Dr. Dharmanda Sung. Hope my accent is correct. And will be presented by the first author, Dr. Ham Said. He is a lecturer and program coordinator of management and OP at Modern College of Business and Science in Muscat, Oman. He also has a doctoral candidate at the School of Management, University of Bradford, UK. So, Dr. Hand, the floor is yours. You have 15 minutes, and then we have a couple of minutes for discussion.
Thank you very much, sir. Am I audible to everybody?
Could you make the slideshow, please, to be clear for all? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Once again, thank you very much, Chair. And first of all, I would like to thank the previous presenters who have very well covered the scope of entrepreneurship. And I was happy to see the order of presentation. And I guessed it that this particular order will help me. And I don't have to repeat the concept of entrepreneurship in detail, which was very well covered by Dr. Mahruz and Dr. Ravi just a few minutes ago in the session, I would like to build upon their presentations and move from social aspect, financial aspect into the education aspect of entrepreneurship. To begin with, just a brief summary of entrepreneurship. We have heard from the presenters now, we have read about it, and it has been talked for the last 1 or 2 decades, predominantly in developed and developing countries, the role it has been playing in socio-economic and transformation of nations. And how is that happening? By economic diversification, especially in GCC context and MENA context, increasing nations' GDP. We have seen developed and developing countries who are thriving on entrepreneurial ventures. If you see top 10 companies of the world today, we realize that they were startups once upon a time, and they have been successful in not only thriving in their own countries, but also across the globe. More importantly, it has accelerated the process of development and growth of a country, which has been again covered by our previous presenters, and more importantly for developing countries and within the Middle East and North African region. All this has led to definitely wealth creation, job creation among the youth, and more importantly, superior quality of life. So when we have all these evidences in the literature, I think it is high time we all stop debating on whether entrepreneurship can be taught or not. It can be. There is no second question about that. However, we need to find effective ways on how it could be taught, for which we need to understand what is being done, analyze the present situation, and strategize the future. I wouldn't like to take much time for literature review. It has been very well in our paper. I'll be more than happy once it is published for the viewers and for the attendees who are interested to know more about academic part of entrepreneurship. Education of entrepreneurship has become quite popular across the globe. Almost all universities and ministries are taking it up seriously. Some are late, but as the cliched saying goes, better late than never. It has definitely created meaningful impact on students' intentions of starting a business or being part of business ventures. So as on a whole, entrepreneurship as a subject has resulted in increase in knowledge acquisition, has led to building leadership skills, nurturing risk-taking abilities, and more importantly, fostering innovation. So as a result, entrepreneurship education it is already, there is a lot of evidence about it, and will continue to pave the way for students to develop lifelong and professional competencies. Just a bit more, entrepreneurship education will also breed graduates who enter society, and that's where my current research is being focused on connecting entrepreneurial university to entrepreneurial society. There's a strong connect, and I'd be more than happy to share it in next particular platform whenever this is possible. And this is built on the current paper we are presenting. Entrepreneurial mindset not only helps to create entrepreneurs, but also to create better employees. In fact, from HR point of view and selection point of view, many companies, many recruiting agencies, apart from knowledge, skills, technical skills, and capabilities, they also are evaluating students' entrepreneurial skills, because they want students to be innovative. They want students to come in with new ideas, and not only come in with new ideas, but build those ideas, translate those ideas into model and into effective projects for the companies. So I see a double-edged sword here. If done well, it is a win-win situation. Not only you're creating job creators, but you're also creating effective job seekers. It has been identified that entrepreneurship education, with its practical nature and the facets which are more industry-linked, will help students to transition from classroom to the real world more effectively. Also, this allows students to become entrepreneurs themselves, better employees, or increase the chances of their employment, and more importantly, either start up or become part of startups. We have enough number of champions, entrepreneurship champions, within the GCC region today, within African region. As we speak, there are so many platforms created by different agencies, government and private, so that students can thrive and be the business leaders the world requires. While the literature has been quite comprehensive, last 25 years, if you see, that's a separate paper Dr. Singh and I have been working on entrepreneurial universities across the world, there has been certain contextual gap within the literature and regions. One gap which you noticed, and that is the theme or the basis of this particular paper, is evaluating whether there is a difference in the impact of entrepreneurship education with regard to the gender, and more importantly, within Oman context. So this is the base on which our paper is built upon. The objective of the paper was quite clear. Since we have the course, entrepreneurship course, mandated by Ministry of Higher Education, and now it has been reframed and it is Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation now. But back in 2014, it was His Majesty, the former ruler of Sultan Qaboos, who was very much keen to have this as a course within HEIs, all the universities and colleges. And this mandatory course is taught in Oman, including here in MCBS, to students from all disciplines. So we realized there is no data about consistency of delivery. That is what happens every year. Is there a major change in the delivery and learning of students? Gender, of course, from the literature, and grade, which we wanted to analyze and pave way for future research projects. Does grade, usually there is a strong correlation. We all have been students once upon a time. We have seen the impact of grade, the importance given to grade. Even today it exists, though the focus might be now spread across different aspects. But grade has always been associated with student success and employability. Many companies even today have cutoffs for the grade. And that becomes an issue. For a course like entrepreneurship, which is practical in nature, does the grade, there's the correlation between the course grade and the learnings of student. So we again went back to literature. As Dr. Ravi rightly pointed out, literature gives us a lot of basis and a platform for further empirical and quantitative studies. So Curatko in 2004, in one of his most cited paper, published the indicators which actually define the learnings of student in classroom with respect to entrepreneurship course. They vary from willingness to take calculated risks, capability to form a venture team, proficiency to manage resources, and more importantly, aptitude to draft a business plan, ability to recognize a business opportunity, and more importantly, how well informed are students to utilize governmental support for SMEs and startups. According to him, this forms the learning or course objectives of entrepreneurship. We have used his indicators as it is and designed the paper in such a way that we can go back to the objective and accomplish our research objective.
Dr. Rehan, you have less than 4 minutes.
Yes, please.
You have less than 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll just wind up. So research hypothesis was very clear. We wanted to see if there is dependency or interdependency with regard to year, gender, and course grade. This is where Dr. Singh contributed a lot with his expertise and experience in quantitative analysis. He was the one who designed the questionnaire and, more importantly, analyzed using two tools, ANOVA and chi-square test of independence. I would just go to the conclusion here because I want to share some findings which have been quite interesting and unexpected. And that's what research is all about. You start the research pursuit with some assumptions, which might be true. As evidence, you realize that you have been right in the assumptions, but you also have been corrected, or your assumptions have been swashed by the findings. So the findings were quite clear. There is consistency, which was good. Many educators or instructors changed in the last 3 years of our academic years, 2017-18, 18-19, and 16-17. Even if the educators changed, there has been consistency in the program delivery, which means to say, if the design of the curriculum is strong and the educators are trained or qualified well enough, there will be consistency. That's our first finding, which the hypothesis, what we assumed, was quite well established. A second one regarding to gender, again, there has been no difference. So if it's a strong curriculum and if it's a good instructor, the gender of students becomes independent, which means there is no difference whether the student is a girl or a boy. Third one, with regard to the learnings and the grade, this is where we were quite surprised, wherein learnings are dependent on the entrepreneurial perspective of students, that is the mindset on the whole. So there has been a correlation within the grades parameter, which means to say higher the grades, there has been higher entrepreneurial perspective, at least with respect to two indicators, which means students who take up the course seriously, who do well in the assessments, continue to build their entrepreneurial perspective much better than students who do not and who get lower grades. So that has been a correlation with our findings. Again, this is the first of its kind of research within Omani context. The entire scope and objective was to start off this and move ahead with further papers as a suggestion for ourselves, for the researchers in this platform. I would like to suggest what can be done is to see if there is consistency of entrepreneurship education in a business school and a non-business school. For example, in an engineering college or a dental or a medical college. How is the end result? Is it the same as in a business school? The reason being, in other colleges, non-business colleges, from my own experience as an instructor here in Oman, I have seen other colleges do not have any other business subject. Whereas in a business school, by the time they come to the entrepreneurship course at the junior level, they already would have studied the basic courses of different programs. So that would be an interesting insight, whether it is Egypt or whether it's Oman or GCC countries. We definitely would like to see more of the research on different aspects of comparative review within colleges in the country. So ultimately, all our efforts would help research world to build a common theory on entrepreneurial perspective, or what it is called entrepreneurial mindset in today's literature, so that a common theory can be built at least region or contextual specific. Without taking much time, I would like to go to the question answer session, because I'm sure the discussions would add more value to all of us. I would like to thank the chair once again, my fellow authors, Dr. Hisham Magd and Dr. Dharmendra Singh, and more importantly, the fellow presenters in the panel for giving a wonderful introduction to entrepreneurship as a concept and helping all of us to understand the concept in a better way. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thank you very much, Dr. Rehan. It's very clear presentation. Actually, again, you're tackling a new and very important issue regarding the relation between economy and entrepreneurship, especially when we are talking about social entrepreneurs. You mentioned first for how the socio-economic development could lead and could support the economic growth, especially when we are talking about economic diversification, especially when we are talking about, again, Arab countries, which have fluctuated economic growth due to laying on oil sector. So the main solution for our region is economic diversifications, which is able to create more jobs. Increase the standard of living, and as well with inclusive and sustained economic growth. It's very important that you are mentioned for the gender perspective when you are dealing with the phenomena related to social, especially our region and our countries, unfortunately, have the highest gender inequality worldwide. So thank you for your presentation and the point you're tackling on. And the floor is open if anyone have a questions or comment for the speakers. Okay. So thank you very much for all for joining this important session. Again, thank you for the speakers, Ms. Riham and Mr. Dr. Ravi and Dr. Rehan. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for all who participate in our session. Now I'm inviting you to join session B because we already started the presentation. Thank you again. It was nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
بس بشغل السبيكر. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session today. My name is Ghada Al-Qadi. I'm Assistant Professor in College of International Transport and Logistics. It's an honor to be the chair and facilitator for the Total Quality Management and Learning Challenges session. First, I would like to welcome all participants and our presenters, our authors for the paper. At the beginning, nowadays, we know that the implementation of the total quality management philosophy still become an important concern to the workflow of different organizations and business organizations who seek to achieve high excellence and competitive edge through the successful implementation of the total quality management concepts. Welcoming all our paper authors. All authors are allowed to have 15 minutes presentation and 5 minutes questions, and all participants welcome to write their questions in the questions and answer box. Let's start with our first paper entitled E-Learning Challenges in Private Higher Educational Institutions during COVID-19 in Oman, the case study of MSBS College, written by Prof. Hisham Magid, Dr. Mothla El-Basadi, and Dr. Ahmed Nazumkanda. Please accept my apology for the pronunciation of different names. And the presenter of this paper will be Dr. Ahmed. He is a health and safety lecturer at Modern College of Business and Science, Muscat, Oman. He has experience, he is in the Department of Business and Economics and working an associate professor in the Quality Assurance Office at Modern College of Business and Science in Oman. And he has previous work experience in oil and gas sector, many research papers and empirical practice in health and safety practice across the workflow. Let's start with the first presentation. Welcome, Dr. Ahmed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Zadeh. Yeah, a lot of people get my name wrong, so it's totally fine. Let me start by sharing my screen.
Yes.
Is it visible?
Yes. Just max my just screen. Yeah.
All right. Thank you again. So e-learning has been in the market, or has been all around the world for a couple of years now, but it only has been quite famous, if I would say, once COVID hit. That is why me and my colleagues, Dr. Hisham Magd and Ms. Musla Al-Busaidi, decided to write a paper on e-learning challenges in private higher education institutions during COVID-19 in Oman, the case study of MCBS. Now, in this talk today, we're going to cover several aspects of which we covered in the paper, starting with COVID-19 in Oman, the beginning of e-learning, global impact of COVID-19 on higher education institutions, impact of COVID-19 in higher education institutions in Oman. Then we're going to focus on the common challenges of online delivery around the world, of which the paper is going to be based on, and the most common challenges of online learning in Oman. Now, just to start off with, how did Corona hit Oman? So just a quick overview of it. As we all know, World Health Organization kind of announced that COVID-19 was a pandemic during March 2020 last year. So once that happened, the government, the Omani government, took actions and came up with policies and procedures in place, whereas they established guidelines where people would go on lockdown. As every other country, there's social distancing and all that. Moreover, they established a lockdown and forced a lot of organizations, a lot of businesses to go to temporarily shut down. This includes the higher education institutions as well. Now, when they were shut down, they were actually redirected to online operations, of which not all businesses were quite prepared for it. When I say businesses, I'm talking generally, then I'm going to be focusing on the higher education institutions in a bit. Now, when you talk about online learning, before we get into it, we have to establish the learning styles first. Now, as you can see, I've categorized the learning styles into three: traditional, blended, and online. Now, we've all been acquainted with traditional face-to-face classes or learning style, where we go to classes and we get information from teachers face-to-face. But in a couple of years, they introduced blended learning, where you could use technology and have a face-to-face interaction with the teachers. But when it came to COVID-19, when COVID-19 hit, we were all forced to move into an online delivery, of which not a lot of people had the resources for it. So when it comes to the adaptation of how people adapted from a traditional face-to-face moving to an online delivery, you could see that some businesses or some higher education institutions were fast in the adaptation, and some were actually slow. They couldn't move towards the online delivery as soon as Corona hit. So when Corona hit, there are a lot of people that were forced to work from home. Again, going back to the resources, some people didn't have the resources. Some were actually prepared. When I say resources, the internet connections and the laptops as well. Moving to the global impact of COVID-19 on higher education institutions. Just a quick study that was done by the International Association of Universities based on 109 countries on COVID-19 in higher education institutions. You can see not only one country was facing these impacts on higher education institutions due to COVID, but a lot of other countries, as you can see from the research done. It was found that these are the common impacts that were established by the authors, that the campus activities have been stopped, so people stopped going to the campus. There was a negative impact on research, which affected about 80% of the higher education institutions around the world. It also affected the teaching and learning styles of the higher education institutions in terms of people going to the campus and learning. So as I mentioned before, people transferred from a traditional face-to-face learning style to a fully online delivery. Now, if you look into some of the countries that we looked into globally when we did our paper or did our research, focused on India, Nigeria, United Kingdom, and Ukraine. If you look into closely, you can see that each country has its own aspect or its own views on higher education institutions and how it was impacted by COVID-19. You can see in India, they talked about all education activities were destabilized, mixed impact on academic research and professional development. There are also employment opportunities that were decreased. So since it was moved online, they didn't really require a lot of employees on campus. So unemployment increased. In Nigeria, international education was reduced. So they're the leading country in internationalization in Africa in terms of in higher education institutions. So they get a lot of students from abroad, from different countries, from different continents. And once Corona hit, COVID-19, they had, or the internationalization process had to be reduced. So it kind of decreased. As in local and international conferences had to be canceled. They normally host conferences on campuses, and now it's done online as how we're doing it right now. If you look into the United Kingdom, they faced the main challenges that they face in the universities there is financial losses. Why financial losses is because they get a lot of students throughout the world, or all over the world. Now, when you talk about financial losses, they get students and put them into accommodation. So the accommodation fees were actually kind of reduced. So they mainly make a lot of their revenue based on the accommodation that they get to the international students. And this was one of the most revenue stream that was cut down by them due to COVID-19. In Ukraine, fully online teaching and learning, as I said, they moved from a traditional face-to-face to an online delivery. The institutions that had dormitories had to shut down. And again, it goes back to the finances of it. Moving on to the impact of COVID-19 on higher education institutions in Oman, as we looked into before globally. Now we're focusing more onto Oman. Now in the paper research, we focused more on both private and the public universities in Oman. If you talk about the public universities in Oman, they were quite unready to adapt to the online delivery. So as you can see, they were slow in adapting of the online learning, and they had about 41% of the college education courses that went online, and the rest just were not ready yet. So some of these departments some of the universities tried to adapt or try to transition department by department online and not a university as a whole. In the private higher education institutions, they had a more abrupt or a more faster adaptation than the public universities. As you can see in the Middle East College, that's a private university here in Oman, they transferred or they transformed their physical traditional face-to-face classes into fully online delivery into two phases, the staff development and curriculum transformation. As we know, we cannot use the same curriculum, the same pedagogy in an online class the same as how you used to use it in a traditional face-to-face class. The common challenges of online delivery around the world. Now, we categorize these challenges into 4 different categories, mainly on individual level, focusing both on the students and the teachers, because they both are main factors in an education institution. Technology, including ICT infrastructure, internet bandwidth, and all. Course contents, the pedagogy that they use, the technology that they link to, the activities that they give the students, and also the cultural challenges. Of course, in Oman, we have to focus on the challenges as well. First of all, looking around the world, the challenges, each country, they have categorized the challenges based on what they are actually facing. As you can see, Pakistan focuses more or categorizes the challenges into technical difficulties, access to computers, English competency, face-to-face interaction, resistance to change. I'm not going to go further into all of them, but if you go into the most common challenges in Oman that were faced in higher education institutions in Oman, they were basically categorized into 3. Well, we categorize them into 3, into primary level, secondary level, and the 3rd level. Now, when you look into the primary level, we had, speaking of MCBS, we had problems engaging the students. So we had a low student engagement, and this comes into the secondary level based on the cultural issues. Now, Oman is a very conservative country where we realized that students not opening the cameras was kind of an issue, because we didn't know if they were there behind the screen or they were just logged in and they went away. So we can't really enforce or force them to open their cameras, since the sessions are being recorded. We had also untrained faculties, whereas most of the senior lecturers was kind of hard for them to transfer from traditional face-to-face to an online learning. Although we did implement blended learning, but they were also not quite convinced in such technology. They are not really tech savvy. The technological infrastructure, some universities here in Oman had to temporarily shut down their operations because they were not ready with the technological resources that they had. We also have lack of policies, moving to the secondary level, lack of policies mainly from the government sector. They forced or they initially told all the higher education institutions to move their operations online, but they didn't have a unified policies and procedures that the higher education institutions should follow. So each university had their own way of dealing with the transformation or the adoption to an online delivery. Moving into the 3rd level, we had lack of support, where a lot of the IT teams were quite overwhelmed with the messages or the emails that they got from both students and the lecturers, so they couldn't really deal with them quite there and then. Lecturers complained in terms of integrity of the students, as they're not sure on whether the students are cheating or not. The students' misunderstandings on what the lecturer is actually portraying or giving the information, as again, the traditional face-to-face pedagogy that is used cannot be used in the online delivery. Me and my colleagues came up with a couple of solutions or recommendations, whereas we categorize them into a couple of slides. More of talking into the students' requirements and technological profiles require early assessment, in the sense that if the student knows that he or she has technical issues, they should inform the university or they should inform the lecturer beforehand, so that they would know that or they would figure out how to deal with the problem. Digital literacy skills for faculty. As you say, online delivery is quite a new thing. on e-learning is quite a new thing. So you need to train your faculty members to know how to deliver online, use the right activities, the right, develop a separate curriculum for it as well. Unified regulation from the Ministry of Health. Okay, now the Ministry of Health has to provide a unified policies, procedures, and also guidelines so that all the universities around the world, around Oman, should implement that. Also, constant feedback and assessment of data of e-learning from students and faculty. In MCBS, every semester, we do update our guidelines based on what we have faced, what challenges we face within that specific semester. So each semester, there are guidelines that are put in place and given to the faculties so that they can implement it in the next semester. We also do take students' perspective on how they were facing challenges throughout the entire semester. Interactive teaching courses were introduced in Modern College of Business and Science, whereas they were mostly used by the courses that actually need more of actually mathematical courses like math, finance, accounting, statistics, whereas they could interact with the students more in terms of providing them with formulas or teaching them step by step on how to solve a specific equation. The government played a very big role in online delivery in Oman, as they gave free laptops to the families with low-income families and students in higher education institutions, and also made internet quite free in the educational portals here in Oman, only educational portals. We also came up with a model where it kind of summarizes what should be done for e-learning to be successful. And it was categorized into 4 different factors: technological factors, institutional factors, human factors, and cultural factors, of which we have all been, have explained them earlier. Now, this paper was mainly a literature review, so there definitely is a future scope and also limitations. The limitations was that we mainly took our points, our ideas from existing papers, trying to identify the common challenges that Oman faced. So the future scope of the next research could be an empirical study. Now, an empirical study could be done to really identify if these recommended solutions, recommended factors that could actually work in implementing or in solving the challenges that were faced in higher education institutions after Corona, COVID-19 hit Oman. Thank you very much. And please, if you have any questions, you can write them down in the Q&A session, and I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed, for a very interesting presentation and very interesting paper. I'm interested in this, and I have 3 questions, and I will start with other participants' questions. From Iman Juma, what is the new innovative learning and adapted will be better overall for entrepreneurship? From your point of view, what is the new innovative learning method to adapt by entrepreneurship? And the second question, if there is no technology, platform, infrastructure used, can be replaced by any innovative or creative method? And the third one is the challenge face e-learning in Oman. And maybe you mentioned in this part.
Can you repeat the first question so I can answer one by one?
Yes.
Yeah.
The new innovative learning can be adapted through the entrepreneurship.
Through entrepreneurship. New innovative technology that could be adapted. As I mentioned, we introduced interactive technological, interactive ITC consoles, I don't know about entrepreneurship, but talking about in educational sector, that is the new technology that we have introduced, whereas we could get more students to be engaged in our classes, as I said, mainly in the mathematical courses. As we first moved into online delivery, we were using Microsoft Teams, but the faculty of such courses had a hard time in explaining step by step on how to solve specific questions using the formulas and the equations. So once we introduced the ITC consoles, it became a little bit better for the students and the lecturers to convey their messages to one another.
Maybe motivating students for entrepreneurship to create or innovate like an e-infrastructure to help with e-learning. The second question, if don't have a technology, what is the other alternative?
Well,
it can be replaced this for innovation?
Well, in this kind of time with COVID-19, we have to social distance. We have to stay away from one another, like for a couple of distance. If there is no technology, then in this case, I guess there's something that they would do is self-learning. Go get, let's say, try getting books, try and reading, but a good thing that we do have technology, so we can actually learn that way. An alternative to not having technology in this age and time is something that is a nightmare to all of us.
The third one, the most challenge faced today e-learning in Oman, and how fear can be solved, how fear of a change, I think like resistant of a change can be solved.
I believe change should be done gradually, not a drastic change. So if you're trying to change, try making it step by step. Okay, so once you do it step by step, it's going to be a little bit easier and less resistance from people. And also you need to kind of show or inform the people, or let's say students or the faculties in this case, that the benefits of that change. So if they see the benefits of the change, then it's easier for them to accept that change.
Yes, thank you very much. Your paper focus on the most important challenges that's facing the higher education sector, especially during the COVID, and how e-learning can be effective. Feedback that it's amazing presentation. And I have a question for you. Do you have like you set like key performance indicators to measure the efficiency of the e-learning application on the Higher Education Institute?
You mean here,
especially in the case study of Oman?
In the case of Oman, I would say if I was talking about the modern college, we do have a set of KPIs where they are sent, or they have to be met by the faculty members. That's why we do have the guidelines that are updated every single semester. So we do take each semester, the KPIs are set for the semester. So whenever that semester ends, they gather all the actions that were supposed to be done so that they can be transferred to a guidelines and basically transformed and be given to the faculty members for them to implement in the next semester.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the excellent presentation. We will move to the second paper in our session, which entitled The Inclusion of Human Factors, Perspective Towards Assuring Quality in Accident Investigation Report, a case study approach on South Asia, written by Dr. Pikal Jaha and Dr. Ja Sanjeev. And the presenter will be Dr. Pikal. Dr. Pikal is a lecturer at Modern College of Business and Science, Oman, Muscat. He is a professional educator in the field of aviation. He holds commercial pilot license, Master of Science in Aviation Management from London, and he is currently a lecturer of aviation in the business department in Oman. Welcome, Dr. Bikal. Let's start.
Thank you, Doctor. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me share a screen. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Today we are presenting inclusion of human factor perspective towards ensuring quality in accident investigation report, a case study approach in South Asia. Myself, along with Dr. Jaya Shangita, have done this research. In the highlights, we have introduction. I'll just briefly go through the introduction, review of literature, methodology, finding and discussions, and conclusion. I'll be more focused on finding and discussion rather than in literature and the methodology part. So to start with, as we know, the importance of human factor in aviation industry, not only aviation, in any other industry. The importance of human factor is paramount. So we want to see whether the human factor has been involved, or human factor has been checked correctly in the accident or not. In most of the developing nation, there are some, I think it's moving on. Okay. In most of the developing nations, the country, the state, they are just complying with the policy just to so that they are complying, basically. So we are trying to identify how effective is the investigation they are conducting in the country. So review of literature, we have gone through various ICAO documents, which is International Civil Aviation Organization, the policies regarding the accident investigation, the manuals regarding the incident and accident investigation. Annex 13 is about the investigation. We have gone through the document 9859, which is about the safety management system. We have gone through the human factor digest demo 7, the safety report, and various other policies. On top of these policies, we have gone through a few research, what have been conducted so far. Like we have gone through one paper where the investigator, where the researcher have done about the accident causes, with a special emphasis on impact of human factor for the period of 16 years, with the more than 300 investigations. We have gone through some other legal framework, the role of government paper, and the human factor in accident investigation. So we have gone through various papers, and we have analyzed the gap between the existing papers. The analysis phase of the investigation report, basically there are 4 different phases. Within that, the analysis phase is one of the major phase, which is lagging or which is not conducting properly as per the recommendation by ICAO and as per recommendation by any other other agencies. So that gap we have identified, and we're trying to find out find out how the countries are conducting the investigations. So for this, we have to we are using the case study analysis. The case study analysis in the South Asian part. South Asia, we have 7 countries, but we have taken 6 countries in this report because we didn't get the report from Bhutan, basically one country. It's not available. That's why we have taken only 6 countries. And the country we have taken Nepal, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Maldives, and Sri Lanka. And each country, we have taken 3 reports from each country. So basically, we'll focus more on finding and discussing. Here we have identified, we have done in 2 different ways. We have analyzed in factor-wise, and we have analyzed country-wise. So factor-wise analysis, we are trying to check how many accidents have followed the ideal time, which is recommended by, again, ICAO. Ideal time should be like 1 year around. It's not mandatory. It's not like a policy that it has to be completed within a year. But if the accident investigation is completed within a year, it is more effective. That many papers have concluded, and even the ICAO have recommended 1 year. So we are trying to find out how many countries are conducting within a time frame. We can see it's only 5 countries out of 5 investigations have been completed on time out of 18 accidents. So another point we are trying to see is independent organization. Independent organization, as per the recommendation from ICAO, investigation should be completed, or investigation should be done by independent organization. The CAA or the regulators should not investigate. So we're trying to see how many countries, how many accidents they are completed by independent organization, so that the biasness will not be there. We can see only 8 out of 18 country, report have been done by independent organization. Independent organization is basically we are recommending, or like ICAO is recommending, in order to reduce the biasness. The effective technique is the third point, effective investigation technique. There are various techniques which is recommended by investigator associations, other organizations, along with the International Civil Aviation Organization. So we are trying to see how many countries, how many reports they have included any technique. We are not going in detail how many techniques they have used and what is the level of effectiveness. We are trying to analyze how many of them they have used the technique. And we can see only 5 out of 18 report, they have used some technique. We have not analyzed the effectiveness of that, but still the basic requirement is to use of some technique. And we can see 13 of them they have not, 10 of them they have not, and 3 is not clear whether they have included or not. Likewise, human factor. As we know the importance of human factor. Human factor have a different analysis. Their own set of analysis has to be done in order to minimize the impact or in order to improve the safety, basically. So human factor analysis is not done in 12 out of 18 accident reports, which is more serious, basically, because if we are not analyzing anything, not analyzing the human factor, it is not going to prevent, we are not going to prevent the accident of similar nature. So there is no point of conducting overall investigation and expending that much of time and effort for the report. Likewise, we have checked the human factor expert, whether experts were included or not. So we can see only 4 reports, they have included the experts out of 80. In a similar way, the root cause has been identified or not. So in order to find out the root cause, we have analyzed the entire entire report. And we can see only 4 out of 18 have concluded or have found the root cause of the accident. So there is a relation between where we have a human factor expert included in the investigation. They have concluded the report in a better way, or they have got the root cause of the accidents. So likewise, we have a country-wise analysis. You can see country-wise India, we have got 3 accidents from India, where we can see only 1 out of 3 accidents have been completed within 1 year and 2 months. Rest all other 2 accidents have been completed in 2 years' time. So in 2 years' time, the effectiveness of the report will be reduced. It means we are not going to learn much about from that particular accident. In a similar way, we can see independent organization. India, they do have independent organization, but 1 accident, there was a separate committee conducted. Separate committee was formed in order to complete that accident. So human factor was included in that. You can see, I'll just summarize the country-wise. We don't have much time. So Nepal, all 3 accidents have been completed on time, and independent organizations should have been completed, but here in this country, they do not have independent, the CAA, the regulator, most of the time they conduct these accidents. The regulators, they perform, or they will form a committee in order to conduct the investigation. The technique was not used in 2 of the accidents, only in 1 the technique was used, and majorly we have noticed that if the committee involved the manufacturers, if the committee involves the foreign country, then all these human factor experts, even technique, everything will be included. But if it is an independent committee conducting the investigation, they are not following the proper procedures. They're not following the guidelines. Likewise, Pakistan, they have not mentioned the duration. In Sri Lanka, they have not mentioned the duration as well in the report, which has to be mentioned. The technique-wise, not used, human factor not used, analysis not done. Maldives, we can see 1 accident have taken almost 2 years. Even they have not, they do not have investigation body. Bangladesh, they do have investigation independent body to conduct this investigation, and they have followed the time duration in 1 accident, because again, in that particular accident, the third party, the third country was involved. 2 countries were involved in that particular accident. That's the reason they were following the guidelines in this particular accident. So to conclude, all these points, like the techniques, duration, human factors included or not, all these will show the quality, the level of the report. So what we are trying to find out is how much is the quality of that particular report, what is done in 2 years' time almost, right? Or more than a year times. If it is not the quality report, we're not going to learn something from that particular report. If we're not learning from that report, there is no point of conducting the research or no point of conducting the investigation. It is just to show or just to submit the report to the International Civil Aviation Organization they are conducting. So as per the existing policy, basically the investigation body is required to submit the report to International Civil Aviation Organization. And that's what they are doing. Like each country, they will submit. But the question coming up, like after submission, what is the point? They are even not checking how effective is the report. even the ICAO have not opened any case, or they are not sending it back to the country for any non-compliances or a standard recommendation if they are not following. So at the level of investigator, it is suggested that their awareness of importance of inclusion of different factor in the report to be emphasized, so that we build a quality at source. So in a nutshell, the inclusion of human factor and the following guidelines of safety recommendation from ICAO are basic requirement for a quality report. Like various questions have arisen from this: why states are not following the guidelines, why human factor is not included, why it is not mandatory, why South Asia Regional Accident Investigation Forum is not supporting the states, why states are not willing to pull their resources for better investigation. There are many countries who do not have all the resources for the investigation, but we can still pull the resources. We have a structure, actually, like a COSCAP is one institution which is by ICAO. They have one institution so that each country can support each other, but it is not like functioning at all. None of the country, they come forward to support other countries. So, but further research into these gaps underneath the valuable information to improve the quality culture and the management in this critical sector. In-depth research by ICAO into these macro areas can contribute significant to promote safety and quality in South Asia. No country should be left behind in terms of safety and quality in this globalized world. Worldwide aviation safety can only be strong as the weakest link. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the excellent presentation. We have two questions. The first one: do you believe the technology replace for airline case can be more impacted and the influence assume the technology is collapse or stop working?
Okay, I think I can see the question. If I can see it, it'd be better if I can read.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Do you believe in the technology replaced for the airline if case can be more impacted and influenced? Assume the technology is help us our
collapse or stop working.
Okay.
Collapse or stop, yes.
Believe in technology replaced for airline? I don't think so. It will be replacing. Yes, it will decline the importance, but I don't think it will replace the airline industry. Even today, if we see the sky, it's still fact. Human being, we are not traveling, but at the same time, if you see, the cargo sector has been increased by double or more, maybe. Before we used to use the other mode of transportation for the cargo. But now, if you see, each country are bringing the cargo from air. The air cargo has been improved. So it's not, I don't think it will be, it's too early to say as well. It's might, but I don't think it is going to replace.
Thank you. The other one related to how fear can adapted, new source, and can save factors.
How fear
factors,
adopted,
yeah, you mentioned too.
The new source to be save factor, like in the accident or in the overall
safety factor, I think. Safety factors.
Okay. Fear of course, it's one part of the human factor within the human factor. If we say how fear can adopt a new source, of course, fear can adopt the new source. I don't know. I didn't get the question clearly, I think.
Maybe how safety factors affect the quality of accident reports.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, safety factor will impact the quality of the report. The quality of the report, the safety, overall safety, we are learning from reactive method, proactive method. And by learning from reactive method, this is the one tool, like safety report is, investigation report is just one tool. From that we are learning. And if that tool itself is not meaningful, or if it is not done properly, or if it is not finding the root cause of the accident, there is no point of overall investing that much of time and effort for the report and investigation.
Thank you for an excellent presentation, and really it's an excellent topic, recommended to have similar reports in different countries, like Arab countries as well. It will be very beneficial to measure the influence of human factors in quality of accident as well. Thank you. Moving to our last presentation today, our last paper entitled The Relationship Between Total Quality Management, Knowledge Management, and Innovation, a Framework to Achieve Organizational Excellence in Service Industry, written by Prof. Hisham Magid, Dr. Suraj Niji, and Dr. Muhammad Al-Ansari, presented by Dr. Siraj. Dr. Siraj is an associate professor in the Faculty of Logistics and Supply Chain Management, and the program coordinator for the Transport and Logistics in Modern College of Business and Science, Muscat, Oman. He has held his PhD in Supply Chain Management in India. Okay, Dr. Siraj. Suraj, Dr.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Dr. Muhammad, yeah. Yes. Dr.
I'm Muhammad Ansari. I'll be presenting this paper.
Okay.
Okay. So the paper title is The Relationship Between Total Quality Management. Can I go ahead?
Yeah. Please maximize the presentation, please. Sure.
Okay.
Slideshow, yes. Okay. We have 15 minutes only, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I go ahead now?
Yes, it's very clear.
Okay, good evening to everybody. I'll be presenting the paper, The Relationship Between Total Quality Management, Knowledge Management, and Innovation, a framework to achieve organizational excellence in service industry. The paper is jointly research done by Professor Hisham Magad. He's Associate Dean of Quality Assurance and Accreditation, Faculty of Business and Economics, and Dr. Muhammad Ansari. He's Assistant Professor, and Dr. Saurav Negi. He's Assistant Professor of Logistics and Supply Chain with Modern College of Business and Science. So the introduction: in today's environment, quality is very, very important. Without the maintaining the quality, we cannot satisfy the customer, whether we are in product line or in service industry. So TQM, accompanied by knowledge management and innovation, can play a significant role in service industry. We did some research in that. Some of the researchers say, like Flan, he said the total quality management fundamentals that says improved service quality, continuous improvement, customer satisfaction, that lead to business success and excellence. So focus on quality is not enough. Today it needs innovation. So innovation, what customer is looking for? We have to look customer demand. We have to exceed the customer expectation. So currently organization having common challenges like severe competition, improve productivity of the competitors. So accordingly, we need to also improve the productivity, performance, and competitive advantage. So total quality management and knowledge management together with innovation can strengthen the consolidated organizational achievements. And according to Magad, he is one of the author of this paper as well. So he published other paper in 2014, and he says that knowledge management is systematic and consolidative in obtaining, creating, sharing, and spreading the knowledge. So the purpose of the study is to find out relationship between knowledge management, total quality management, and innovation. So the research objective is the purpose of this study is to find out the relationship between TQM, knowledge management, and innovation in achieving organizational success, mainly in service industry. So literature we gone through. So TQM requires an organization shall repeatedly gather, investigate, and examine in attaining success. According to Huzu, 2005, he said knowledge management is building culture to support knowledge and creation. So knowledge management path is vibrant and well-planned vision that should be accompanied with the innovation. So integration of TQM, knowledge management, and innovation, and how TQM can be good for organizational success. So in this paper, we'll be discussing that. So TQM role in service industry, according to Mustaq, he came recently, his paper was published a year before. He said TQM can achieve sustainable competitive edge through knowledge management. Another paper of Dr. Ansari, he says that service quality and employee satisfaction can lead to customers' loyalty, because when the service quality is good, employee will be satisfied, they will be taking care of the customers, customers will be satisfied. Once the customer is satisfied, customer will be loyal. That will lead to the repurchase and increase revenue and profitability. So TQM can reduce operating costs. Of course, when the TQM is there, the waste is reduced, the productivity goes high. Every time you produce, first time you produce the perfection. So there's no rework or redone. So that will lead to higher productivity, value for money, customer satisfaction, and loyalty. Other paper which says Prajo in 2003, he said TQM can meaningfully relate to products as well as service innovation and its performance. Similarly, Honga, he came in 2010, he said TQM was originally practiced in Japan. Later, during World War II, it was approved by United States in 1980. So even the United States, they took it, even worldwide, they're taking the TQM very seriously, because without the TQM, we cannot live in this competitive market. So TQM and knowledge management, let's see things. New knowledge management starts from knowledge creation. So the industry has to create the knowledge, sharing the knowledge, using the knowledge, and managing for competitive advantage. So unless we use our knowledge for competitive gain or regain, or to make the industry more competitive, we cannot survive in the market. So according to OEO, he came in 2009, he said, integrating knowledge management and TQM would have great significance in organization strategy. So we find that TQM and knowledge management is considered sweeping perfection. However, both having a relationship and are strongly correlated. So TQM cannot live without the knowledge management. Only TQM will not work out unless we manage the knowledge as well. So according to Honapur in 2012, he came with the research. He found out that TQM and knowledge management are connected with each other. And it is right for the sustainable development, and one will not survive in absence of others. So only TQM will not work unless it is accompanied with the knowledge management. So effectiveness of TQM depends on knowledge management processes that require new source of information. Accordingly, we find TQM and knowledge management and innovation this combined together. According to Autumns, he came with the research paper. He said process improvement with strategic innovation can improve overall performance of the company. And similar type other paper came in 2015 by Urshad. He says he came with the relationship of TQM and knowledge management, and that is good for the or novel for the service industry. According to Hanapur, he came in 2007 with the research paper. He discussed about TQM knowledge management shows a positive association, process, product, and innovation, and so. So TQM and organizational excellence in service industry. So TQM can create customers' captivity. Once that quality is good, customer will come back again because customer will be satisfied and he will have a positive word of mouth to others to come to that so-and-so shop or so-and-so industry and so-and-so service. That will lead to the customer satisfaction and customer loyalty. Therefore, authors proposes that TQM and organizational excellence should be given high priority for organizational sustainability. So research methodology, the present study is based on secondary data and extensive literature review on TQM, knowledge management, and innovation. The extensive literature review was conducted on this and understand the relationship among them. The literature review was divided into 3 themes or 3 parts. One was TQM and its role in service industry, TQM knowledge management, TQM knowledge management and innovation, and TQM and organizational excellence in service industry that enables or understand the current phenomena of these fields. Literature review was conducted mainly for the tier 1 journal like Emerald, Elsevier, Taylor and Francis, Springer, Wiley, and so on, and Sage. So we find that the framework, TQM enables knowledge management and innovation in any business organization will increase customer focus. So with that TQM knowledge management and innovation, the industry will become more customer focused, more customer oriented, looking for the exceeding the customer expectation. It will have better supplier relationship, and supplier relationship also equally important because they are the people, those who are providing them raw material and so on and so forth. And it will have a leadership required to have very strong fundamental setting in and clear goal and objectives in order to maintain all TQM knowledge management and innovation. And it will require personal involvement to bridge the gap, to bridge the communication gap between the manager and the employee. And it will have continuous improvement. Like Kaiser is talking continuous improvement, every iteration should have better result. On every iteration should have better improvement. So for product or service, either product or service, or even the process, they should have continuous improvement. So our framework and discussion, we link this total quality management, knowledge management, and organization innovation together. We find TQM and knowledge management has got direct reciprocal relationship, and TQM has relationship with the organizational innovation. Similarly, knowledge management has got innovation for organizational innovation. So our framework and discussion, we find that TQM, knowledge management, and innovation are interconnected and all are interrelated to each other, having mutual rapport between TQM and knowledge management, and both will lead to innovation. Therefore, TQM induces knowledge management and knowledge management drives TQM. So based on the finding and analysis, available literature and concept, the following propositions are formed which can be empirically tested in future studies. An example, there is a reciprocal relationship between TQM and knowledge management. There is a positive relationship between TQM and innovation in service industry. And there is a relationship between TQM and innovation in service industry. So current literature or current framework was on the literature view. This can be tested in empirical validation in the service industry in the future. There is a positive relationship we found that between TQM and knowledge management and innovation that will lead to achieve organizational excellence in service industry. So our conclusion is what in this current volatile business, things are getting very tough, competitive in the market, whether in the service industry or product industry, we require to have environmental, especially challenging for organization. And this study presents how the industry can be beneficial or practitioner and researcher can reap the benefit of knowledge management, innovation, and TQM together. The study will help in practitioner, researcher to understand TQM, knowledge management, and innovation in service industry. This framework will enable understand the relationship between all the three dimensions. Future research based on this study to test the finding through empirical validation, that will be a good one. And limitation of this study was this: the TQM study will be very beneficial for the practitioner researcher. Of course, it is. The study will help in practitioner researcher to understand the benefit of TQM. The future research can be based on the finding of this on empirical validation. Currently, this was done on based on literature review of various journals and literature and the books and so on and so forth. So limitation was there was not enough time to do the empirical study. That may take a little more time. That can be done in the future. And with this, we should finish our presentation. Any question?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed. Very, very interesting presentation, especially focusing on the important part is which is organizational excellence. All organizations now seeking to achieve excellence, especially the challenges facing the service sector and tackling the relationship between the application of TQM, knowledge management, and the innovation is very crucial to achieve the excellence level. We have, I have some questions from the participants. How can TQM can be effective tool in the economy?
TQM can be effective, of course. The economy will be better in the TQM. We basically avoid any wastage. The very first time we do perfect. So that will lead to the 3 Sigma or 6 Sigma. So some of the companies, they are 6 Sigma compliant because they don't waste. There is no production waste. They don't go for inspection. They go for the first time perfection. Like an example of Motorola, that is 6 Sigma compliant. Less than 1 defect in 1 million, 0.002. Of course, TQM once it's maintained, not only TQM in the service industry, in the production line, in service industry, even the education, TQM can be maintained. That will affect the economy as a whole, whether the company or the nation or the society.
Yes. The second one, how can creativity and the innovation affect quality and influence environmental economic sector?
Okay, with the innovation, only TQM, confining to TQM will not last long because TQM has to stay with the innovation. We have to be more innovative in the every iteration or every time, so that and along with the TQM, once we succeed, so organization can grow better and can go for sustainable future. An example, let's take the Fortune 500 companies. They work on the TQM, they work on innovation, they work on the knowledge management. That is the reason they maintain the profitability, revenue, and so on and so forth.
Thank you. I have one question about the service industry. Which service industry be more beneficial applying this relationship or this framework from the study?
I would say all the service industries can be applied. Let's think of a medical line or health sector. Very, very important to maintain that TQM and knowledge management. Even in the education sector, we require to maintain that. Let's see the aviation sector. If we maintain TQM and all, so what happened? It will be more safer flying. So these are the sectors are very important. Even maritime sector, TQM is very, very important because these are the very risky sector where individual on risk. So medical sector, aviation, maritime, and even the education where every student can get the benefit of it.
Thank you for all authors, all paper presenters and authors, and all participants who attend our session today. Thank you so much for this valuable session, and thank you for the authors. Wish you a very good day. Thank you.
Thank you. So nice of you. Nice meeting.
Thank you.